One camera catches a shape crouched at the tree line, close enough to see its breath in the cold air. Different forests, different years, but the same unsettling mystery keeps appearing. Some may have ordinary explanations. Others remain unexplained. By the end of the video, you can decide for yourself what was really hiding in the wilderness. The trail camera was still being mounted to the tree when the person setting it up turned around and found something huge standing motionless in the clearing behind them. The footage opens mid-setup in the Colorado woods, hands adjusting the camera and checking the angle, when the operator suddenly freezes and looks up, reacting to something just out of frame. There's no hesitation in the movement, just an immediate visible shift from routine setup to sharp alarm, the kind of reaction that's hard to fake. The camera swings and zooms toward whatever caught their attention, and for a brief window, a massive figure comes into view at the edge of the clearing, tall, still, and clearly outsized against the surrounding trees. The clip has circulated online under the name Yellow Top Bigfoot, a nickname that stuck once viewers noticed a lighter, almost yellowish patch of coloring near the top of the figure, standing out against the darker tree line behind it. There's no second angle, no follow-up shot once the zoom settles, just those few seconds of a figure standing in place before the footage abruptly cuts out. No vocalizations, no movement beyond that first reaction. Whatever it was seems to have already been standing there, watching quietly, long before the camera operator ever turned around. No further details about the exact location in Colorado, or who originally filmed it, have ever surfaced alongside the clip. What's left is a short, unedited moment. Someone setting up equipment alone in the woods and turning around to find they weren't alone after all. What do you think Yellow Top really was, standing there in that clearing? Deep in the heart of a remote wilderness, where towering trees covered the landscape and dense forests surrounded every direction, a hiker's camera captured a moment that would leave viewers stunned. In the middle of daylight, a massive figure emerged between the trees, moving with a strange presence unlike anything normally found in the wild. As the footage was zoomed in, the details became even more mysterious. A huge, broad frame, powerful shoulders, long, heavy arms hanging low, and a dark, blackish-brown body blending into the forest. For a brief moment, the unknown figure stood exposed before slowly disappearing back into the shadows. Featured by Bigfoot and Jeff, this chilling footage continues to raise one unforgettable question. Was this the legendary Bigfoot finally captured on camera? A peaceful journey through the wilderness takes a terrifying turn when a lone explorer stops to capture the beauty of a quiet creek. As the camera slowly pans across the scene, a massive, nearly 9-foot-tall figure suddenly appears beside a tree, its broad frame covered in dark, almost black hair, with its head turned directly toward the lens, as if it had been watching the camera the entire time. The figure remains motionless for a moment, seemingly aware that it has been seen. But as the explorer cautiously moves closer, it quickly slips behind the trunk. Then the footage takes an impossible turn. The tree appears far too narrow to hide a body of that size, yet the creature disappears completely. The footage, shared by Sasquatch watchers, raises an unsettling question. Was this simply a trick of distance, darkness, and perspective? Or did something truly vanish in plain sight? Could this be evidence of a Bigfoot with abilities far beyond anything known in the natural world? Or is there a more ordinary explanation hidden somewhere in the footage? What do you think really happened here? Let us know in the comments. In the distance, a dark, hairy shape suddenly appears, its attention locked on a trail camera fixed to a nearby tree, almost like it already knows it's being watched. At first, it keeps its distance, studying the device from afar without making a move. Then, without warning, it starts closing the gap, approaching the lens for a much closer, far more unsettling look. As it steps into full view, long, shaggy hair hangs past its arms, matted and uneven, but the face is different. Strikingly hairless by comparison, almost deliberately bare, and that's where it gets hard to explain away. 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, all unmistakably defined, hauntingly human in arrangement. But the bone structure and proportions surrounding those features don't match anything human at all. Originally shared by NVTV, the footage captures the figure in a tense sequence, its arms lifted toward its chest, as though it's inspecting the camera itself, less predator, more curious about what it's just found. In the final seconds, it moves past the lens at close range, leaving only its legs visible as it continues pacing just outside the frame, never fully gone, never fully seen again. What do you think was really caught here, so close to the camera? Footage courtesy: Small Town Monster. The investigative team, known for exploring the country's most mysterious Bigfoot sightings, left the forests of the Adirondacks and traveled to western Massachusetts to uncover more about the elusive creature in the Northeast. Along the way, they noticed that Kinderhook was right on their route, so they decided to stop in this small Hudson Valley town. There, they met Bruce Hallenbeck, a key figure in Bigfoot research and co-author of Monsters of the North Woods, who could reveal more about the mysterious creature.
Creature sightings and Bruce and all that kind of stuff.
Sure. If you know, in some of these regions, it's not what you would expect. Albany, New York, the capital of New York, if you go just 10 miles south, you will run into Kinderhook, New York. They have a creature down there. The leading expert on the Kinderhook creature is Bruce G. Hallenbeck. And Bruce Hallenbeck, several members of his family have had close encounters with a creature and multiple creatures down in that region.
The story of the Kinderhook creature begins long before sightings made headlines. It starts with a family encounter that would leave a lasting impression. One day, Barry, a cousin of the storyteller, was setting traps in the swampy land behind his parents' house when he came running back, pale and shaken.
In or around 1980, which is not all that far removed from the A-Bear incident of 1976. This was a time in history where Bigfoot sightings were happening all over the country, and there was a general sense that it's all right to talk about these things.
The creature or creatures in the Kinderhook area.
It's very elusive, whatever it is.
In fact, Hallenbeck says this thing is so elusive that he'll sometimes see tracks and then they suddenly stop, as if the creature had vanished into thin air.
Can you walk us through the Kinderhook creature events?
The Kinderhook creature story really is, in a way, the story of my grandma.
He had seen 3 strange creatures across the creek, tall, bipedal beings covered in reddish-brown hair, making eerie clacking and grunting sounds. This terrifying moment would mark the beginning of a family legacy intertwined with the mystery of the unknown. Later that year, the storyteller's grandmother began noticing strange activity around her home.
Creature curled up in the fetal position on her lawn, and she watched for a minute thinking it was a bear that was going to get up and walk, lumber away. Whatever it was got up, stood on 2 legs, and walked away. And they wrote to the Times-Union back then, a columnist named Barney Fowler, and he dubbed it the Kinderhook creature.
Close encounter with the creature.
Oh, he was big, tall, and he was standing on his 2 feet just like a person, and covered with black hair.
So he published a letter, and as a result of that, scores of other people wrote in saying that they had had similar experiences. They'd either seen something or they'd heard something they couldn't explain.
Trash bags were disappearing from her porch, only to be found in the middle of the yard, untied and rifled through, as if someone, or something, was searching for food. It seemed to have fingers, she thought. Soon she learned that her neighbor, Mrs. Walters, was experiencing the same disturbances. One day, she even found her trash bag hanging in a tree. Then, one early morning around 5 o'clock, as the first light of day crept in, the grandmother looked out her kitchen window and froze. On the ground, curled up in a fetal position, was something humanoid, but clearly not human. Horror washed over her that made her blood run cold.
There was also, I think it was when we made the tape, if I'm not mistaken, that my father went over across the road with a shotgun trying to see if he could see anything, and he said he saw something with red eyes. Something that he saw with red eyes, and he said there aren't really any animals native to this area that have red eyes. So that was part of it.
Still plays.
It's still, oh, you have the original one? Is that in there?
I was almost wondering if it was some kind of bird thing, but
Yeah, it would make weird bird noises. I was telling him about that.
when we shined the light on it, and then a couple of seconds later, it was down at the other end of the field where that driveway.
Yeah, move fast, whatever it was, or there were two of them.
Fast, whatever.
But he said he saw something with red eyes.
Red eyes.
She watched for a long moment, thinking it might just be a bear that would soon get up and walk away. But then, to her shock, the creature slowly stood up on two legs. It moved with surprising grace, walking off into the dim morning light, leaving her frozen with fear. The sight was so strange and unforgettable that a local columnist, Barney Fowler, later wrote about it in the Times-Union, calling them the Kinderhook creatures. Reports of strange encounters kept coming in, each more unsettling than the last. Up the road, a man named Philip Weingard claimed he saw a creature in a swamp matching the typical description and said it was making a horrible, spine-chilling sound. Another remarkable sighting came from Mike Babb, who was fishing at a nearby dam one afternoon. In broad daylight, he saw a creature emerge from the woods across the creek. It had reddish-brown hair, large dark eyes, and even black fingernails that were clearly visible. After observing it for a moment, the creature turned and disappeared back into the forest, leaving Babb stunned. With so many eyewitnesses describing tall bipedal creatures with reddish-brown hair and unsettling behavior, the question remains, are the Kinderhook creatures just a local legend, or is something truly out there in the forests of the Northeast? At first, the forest appeared completely empty. It was a quiet morning in March 2023 near Bartlett, New Hampshire, where the dense woodland seemed strangely still. The usual sounds of nature were missing. No birds calling, no animals moving, and no signs of life among the trees. Then, something unexpected caught a hiker's attention. Deep within the forest, a massive dark figure emerged between the trees. Its broad shoulders, unusual size, and strange movements made it look unlike anything normally found in the wilderness. Hidden behind the bushes, the hiker remained completely motionless, slowly lifting his camera to record what was unfolding. The footage, later shared by Sasquatch Mafia, captured only a few brief moments of the mysterious figure moving through the woods. But as the camera appeared to capture its clearest view, the figure suddenly disappeared into the thick brush. No footsteps, no sounds, no explanation, just a short clip, and a mystery that continues to raise one question. What was really moving through those trees? On Travel Channel, every journey tells a story, and this one is deeply personal. Michael Freeman ventures into the wilderness, following the footsteps of his father, Paul Freeman, whose life changed forever in 1982. That first encounter with a legendary creature sparked a 15-year obsession. Now, Michael retraces the same rugged terrain, asking the question that started it all. What truly happened here? And is it still out there? Paul Freeman spent long stretches in these woods, convinced the land itself whispered secrets.
My name is Michael Freeman. Paul Freeman is my dad in 1982. That's when he had his first encounter with Bigfoot. And that kind of set off a 15-year obsession, I guess you could call it.
Yeah, go around this bush here, see what's going on here.
Each trip revealed new clues, fresh imprints, unusual traces, signs of deliberate movement. He filmed every discovery, building a growing archive of unanswered questions. Yet the source remained elusive. Clear signs appeared, then silence. Whatever lurked seemed to watch from just beyond view.
Now, Deduck Spring, where this video was taken, was one of the viable water sources that was still being used by animals.
Sometimes they come here and get water.
My dad, knowing this, had been going up to that area for a couple weeks, actually, and he was finding footprint tracks up there, hair samples, He had been taking his camera. He was filming the collection of evidence.
Wow, looks like he's pretty fresh.
He would find stuff, but he would never have any sightings. And he would go back, the next day or the day after, and the same thing would happen over and over.
Yeah, he's went back up the road, come down the road.
Paranormal researcher Rosemary Ellen Guiley notes that Paul Freeman's legacy comes from evidence that could be examined, not debated. The footprint casts he recovered showed fine ridge patterns.
The valuable thing that Paul Freeman contributed to the field really came from his casts of footprints, and they have been examined by experts. He was able to capture what are called dermal ridges in his casts. This is an indication of striations in the skin.
Can't see much up through here. I hear the brush popping and stuff. Oh, there he goes.
Consistent with skin texture, setting them apart from ordinary tracks. Following the trail deeper, Freeman documented every step, the footprints leading him from certainty toward the unknown. He had seen strange things before, but nothing like this night. As darkness fell, Paul Freeman pushed deeper, following sounds that felt deliberate. These woods held a long history of mystery, and now they seemed anything but empty. Whatever moved beyond the brush did so with purpose, turning a routine investigation into a moment that would haunt him long after he returned.
He was pale in color. You could tell that something had upset him and something had bothered him.
Oh, God.
It's the only time in my life, including the day that he died, that I ever saw my dad scared of anything. And that right there, to me, I don't have to see one. That's the only proof I'll ever need for the existence of this animal, just knowing my dad and how that affected him.
The figure moved with fluid, instinctive grace. Nothing stiff, nothing forced. Its size and proportions were disturbingly consistent, impossible to fake. Later, those closest to Paul spoke not of what he saw, but how it changed him. A man known for strength and fearlessness, someone untouchable to his son, was left visibly shaken. For the family, that reaction mattered more than any photo or footage.
People can be skeptical, but you cannot deny the impact that these sightings have had on the people who saw the activity.
What can you say? Your dad comes home and he's got something like this on video, and you watch it and you rewatch it and then you watch it again and you say, well, that's not a bear. It's not a man. It's nothing I've ever seen. And yeah, it was exciting. It was an exciting time.
Oh, there he goes.
Whatever Paul encountered broke the image of invincibility, and that was proof enough. In the shadows, something moves. Tall, upright, impossibly still. Its coat is thick and wild, unlike any known animal. The camera rises slowly, revealing a presence that seems aware of its observer. A head shifts with quiet intention. Every subtle movement hints at intelligence, patience, and a power beyond comprehension. Alive, watching, refusing to reveal itself fully.
This is probably the most dynamic Bigfoot footage that I've ever seen.
The movements of this creature look very natural.
Doesn't look like a man in a suit. The height looks right, the weight looks right. I feel like this would be difficult for a man to hoax all on his own and the word not get out.
Oh, God. I hear my heart beating 40 miles an hour.
I believe that he saw Bigfoot. I know my dad. I grew up with my dad. I know what kind of person he is.
The figure had the unmistakable hallmarks of Bigfoot. Towering, primate-like, with a broad, dome-shaped head and massive frame. Beneath the dense fur, a lighter area hinted at a bare chest or hands held before it, adding an uncanny awareness to the encounter. The evidence was undeniable. Not a hoax, not a story from the past. Something still moves through these mountains.
Frightened my dad, who I saw as being Superman, basically. Growing up, big guy, tough guy, brave guy, someone who wasn't afraid of any man or beast, on this earth, to actually be rattled and scared by something. I don't need any more proof than that.
Gotta be tracks here somewhere in this road. Oh, here's one.
For somebody to devote their whole life to a field like Bigfoot searching and squatching, to finally get something on camera is a huge deal.
Yeah, they've been all over this in here.
An elusive presence known only as Bigfoot. Witnessing it, even briefly, changes everything, leaving a mark that can never be forgotten. After decades of footprints, fleeting glimpses, and undeniable encounters, the forest keeps its secrets. The question isn't whether Bigfoot exists, it's whether anyone can face what's out there and return unchanged. Will Michael Freeman uncover the truth? The sound came from directly behind the tree he was leaning against, not the rustle of hogs he'd been waiting on, but something heavier, more deliberate. It was October 24, 2013, about 6 p.m., and the hunter was tucked into a swamp roughly 9 miles west of Tunica, Mississippi, dressed head to toe in camo, sitting dead still the way he always did when the light started to fade and the hogs began to move. He turned to look. What he saw wasn't a hog. Crouched beside a dead cypress stump about 50 yards out was something huge and black, its shoulders too broad and its posture too upright for any animal he recognized. It had hands. It was tearing into the stump like it was digging something out, and the sound of bark ripping away carries clearly in the footage between right as he fumbles his iPhone into position. His first instinct was to run. He didn't even think about the rifle in his hands. Instead, in a moment he later described as feeling like everything had slowed down, he started recording by accidentally hitting the button twice, stopping and restarting the video before he finally got it locked on the figure. From the footage shows the creature working at the stump, breaking off what looks like wood or bark and tossing it aside, its movements slow and methodical, completely unbothered by how close it was to the tree line. The hunter, a lifelong outdoorsman used to judging animal size at a glance, put its height at around 7 feet, and he was adamant it didn't move like a bear. The back stayed too straight, the shoulders stayed too square. The footage, later uploaded by Josh Highcliffe under the title, "I Think I Saw a Skunk Ape, Please Help," quickly spread online, with some viewers calling it one of the most convincing pieces of Bigfoot footage ever recorded. Viewers immediately began analyzing every frame, comparing the figure's proportions with nearby trees and the cypress stump for scale. While skeptics argued that poor image quality left room for misidentification, supporters pointed to the creature's posture and deliberate movements as reasons they believed the footage deserved closer examination rather than immediate dismissal. Then came the truck. A vehicle passed on the nearby road, and the creature rose to its full height, the moment that made even skeptics pause, watching a figure with longer legs and broader shoulders than any bear straighten up out of a crouch. That was as far as the hunter could handle. He said later he tried to stay dead quiet, but the second it stood, his nerve broke and he ran, leaving the camera and the last seconds of whatever he'd stumbled onto behind him. He never went back into that part of the swamp again. He'd grown up hearing stories about the skunk ape and the Honey Island swamp monster from the older hunters in the area, but he said he never once thought he'd end up filming proof. So what was crouched by that cypress stump, tearing bark with its bare hands in the Mississippi swamp? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching. On Oregon Public Broadcasting, the search for Bigfoot is examined through a very different lens, one that moves beyond cameras, traps, and expeditions. While countless films and docuseries portray hunters combing forests in hopes of capturing or proving the creature's existence, indigenous voices from the Pacific Northwest offer a deeper perspective. To them, Bigfoot is not something to be found but a spiritual presence woven into ancestral stories, cultural memory, and everyday life. Rather than a myth to chase, Bigfoot is a living idea, respected, remembered, and quietly acknowledged across generations.
It's interesting to see all of these searching for Bigfoot films, documentaries, docuseries, where they're literally out there looking to find Bigfoot, capture him. I don't really know what they're expecting to do. They'll never find him because Bigfoot is spirit. Being a native person, especially from the Northwest, Bigfoot is in all of our stories. Bigfoot is thought about, considered almost weekly in people's lives, almost daily.
No one anticipated that a piece would be created for Bigfoot. Yet, as the idea took shape, certain elements felt inevitable. Shells intertwined into the design, accents of raw wood, and a cloak of the darkest hues. Bigfoot had always held a fascination, glimpses caught here and there, fleeting, unconfirmed, and always referred to as he, though no one could truly know if it was male or female. Memories of Pearson Creek lingered vividly, echoes of that distant call piercing the stillness, a place disturbed, and everyone knew Bigfoot did not welcome such intrusions. The forest seemed alive, watching, waiting.
I expected that I would be creating peace for Bigfoot. And so when I'm thinking about this dress, I knew it needed to have shells. I knew it needed to have wood on it. I knew it needed to be a dark, dark color.
I've always liked Bigfoot. I've seen him a couple times. And here we say he, because it really can't see a gender, so we don't know if we're seeing a he or a she.
Remember when we heard Bigfoot up at Pearson Creek?
Well, there was logging going on up there, and they do not like.
Whenever someone ventures into the forest searching for Bigfoot, it is almost always white men leading the way. Rarely do they glimpse the creature itself, but the forest has a way of revealing other things, hidden fears, forgotten memories, pieces of themselves they never expected to confront. Every snapped twig, every shadow shifting in the undergrowth seems to watch them back. In the hunt for a legend, they often find something far more unsettling, the quiet truths that the wilderness keeps for itself.
Destructive stuff to some of their
Yeah.
equipment.
Every time I've heard of somebody looking for Bigfoot, well, it's mostly white men, they never find Bigfoot. But what they do find out is a lot about themselves.
That's true.
For native residents, they have always seen him more than a legend, as part of the family, a shadow among the trees, quiet, yet ever present. Generations have coexisted with him, feeling his presence without needing proof. Some may doubt his existence, but those who know the forests understand. He has walked these lands for centuries, unseen yet never absent, a living secret of the wilderness.
I think the way we view him is that he's like family. And I think that we have coexisted with him for a long time. It makes me think of why people might say Sasquatch isn't real, and it's like, that's clearly up to you, and you can believe the way you want to believe, but I've always believed that this is definitely something that has lived here for a long time.
In the world beyond the mainstream, the question isn't whether Sasquatch exists. For native people, that is never the point. Their stories, passed down through generations, carry a knowledge older than any map or record. These encounters are vivid, profound, and undeniable. Reminders that the unseen still moves among them. Every rustle in the trees, every shadow in the twilight whispers the truth. They are part of a larger mystery that refuses to be solved.
You look at the larger mainstream, really it comes down to an issue of whether or not you believe in Sasquatch. For Native people, that's not the issue. Our oral traditions and our oral history are actually a kind of knowledge system. Our people will continue to have these kinds of experiences, as profound as they are. And that experience just tells us that we are still a part of this greater mystery.
If Bigfoot has quietly walked these forests for generations, witnessed only in fleeting shadows, whispered in stories, and felt more than seen, then what does it truly mean to encounter him? Is he a spirit of the wilderness, a mirror to our own fears, or something far older? On Chanel What Lurks Beneath, we dive into encounters where peaceful moments in the wild slowly turn into something far more unsettling. Tonight's story follows three friends who travel deep into a quiet stretch of Nebraska in the spring, hoping for nothing more than a relaxing fishing and camping getaway. The lake was remote, the forest silent, and their small campsite sat in a clearing not far from the water. After spending the day fishing and unwinding beside a crackling fire, they eventually turned in for the night, believing the wilderness around them was calm and undisturbed. But in places this isolated, the silence can sometimes mean something else entirely. Something waiting just beyond the darkness of the trees.
On the evening of April 14th, 2019, John and two friends were at an overnight camping trip in a remote corner of Nebraska. They'd driven out to this spot specifically because it was known for having some pretty good fishing, and they were planning on spending a few days just relaxing by the water, catching fish, and enjoying being away from civilization. The three friends had set up their individual tents in a small clearing about 50 yards away from the lake and had spent most of that first day fishing and hanging around their campfire.
Sometime deep into the night, John's sleep was shattered by an odd disturbance outside the tents. At first, it blended with the usual nighttime sounds of the forest, but within moments it became impossible to ignore. Something was moving through their campsite with slow, powerful steps, brushing against equipment and shifting things around the clearing as it passed. The sheer weight behind those movements made it clear this wasn't some small creature wandering through. Whatever was out there carried serious mass. Lying still in the darkness, his thoughts and search for a logical answer. Given how remote the area was, and the fact they'd spent the entire day handling fish near the lake, one possibility quickly formed in his mind. Something large had caught the scent of their camp and followed it straight into the clearing.
But around 1 in the morning, John was suddenly jolted awake by this strange noise. It sounded like something was moving around their campsite. And at first, he was kind of groggy and disoriented, but as he lay there listening, he could tell that whatever was out there was big, and I mean really big. The way it was moving through their camp and knocking things around, stepping on stuff, this wasn't just a raccoon or a possum. It had to be something of substantial size.
For nearly half an hour, strange heavy movements rattled the campsite. Then suddenly everything fell silent, leaving the night unnervingly still. John cautiously peeled back the flap of his tent and peered into the darkness, but the shadows swallowed everything, and he couldn't tell where the creature had gone. Stepping carefully across the clearing, he made his way to where his friends were sleeping and gently tapped their tents awake, whispering that the disturbance seemed to have passed. But an uneasy feeling lingered, urging them to stay alert, aware that in the wilderness, silence can be just as dangerous as noise.
This goes on for like 20 or 30 minutes, and then suddenly it just stops entirely, and they can't hear any more sounds. And so John quietly gets up, slowly unzips his tent, and he pokes his head around to get a look. But it's so dark that he can't see anything. But he can't hear where this large animal has gone either, but it looks like the coast is clear. So he climbs out of his tent and quickly goes over to where his friends are sleeping, and he just kind of gently taps the side of the tent to get their attention. And he whispers to them that he thinks whatever it was has moved on, but that they should all get up and stay awake for a while just in case. He just doesn't feel great about it.
Tension gripped one of the group as the shadow loomed nearby, prompting a desperate blast toward the ground. The creature leapt back, crashing through the underbrush, then silence fell. But the pause brought no comfort. It was clear it hadn't fled, only pulled back, waiting. With barely any light, every step forward felt like walking into a trap.
One of John's friends saw this and started going into a full-blown panic. He immediately fired a shot into the ground near where this thing was standing. And as soon as that happened, this animal jumped backwards into the dark, and John and his friends could hear it kind of scurrying away, and they could hear it crashing through the underbrush and it moving away from them. But it only lasted a few seconds because then all the sounds stopped. It was evident right then and there that this retreat wasn't an escape attempt.
From the shadows emerged a towering figure, moving upright with an almost unnatural gait. In an instant, it darted across the road and disappeared into the shadows beyond a cluster of houses, leaving them paralyzed with fear. They stood in silence, eyes scanning the darkness, hoping against hope that whatever had appeared wouldn't return before the bus arrived.
Whatever animal this was actually on two legs and was very large. And within about 2 seconds, this animal sprints across the road and then quickly vanishes between two houses on the opposite side. Just like that, it's gone. And both brothers were just completely terrified by what they saw. They didn't really say anything to each other. I mean, what was there to say? They just kept scanning the darkness, hoping that whatever it was did not come toward them.
In the darkness, a strange glow caught their attention. A pair of eyes, unnaturally bright in yellow-orange, hovering unusually low. The way they sat made it seem as though the creature was rooted to the ground. For a long, tense moment, the eyes held them in place, then abruptly faded, leaving only the silent, empty night behind.
And then she spots something. This set of eyes. What's weird is that they're relatively low to the ground, but they reflect the light with this bright yellow orange, and oddly, the placement doesn't match up. It looks like it's sticking out of the ground, like whatever this is buried up to its chest.
This encounter carries a weight that's impossible to ignore. The events can only be shared as they unfolded, leaving each person to draw their own conclusions. If it was real, the true nature of what emerged that night remains an unsettling enigma, lingering somewhere between the known and the unknown. If Brad's hunting party couldn't find a single track after 4 direct hits, dogs a few hundred miles north in Ohio picked up on something that never even got close enough to be shot at. The footage was sent to researcher Sean Gilligan through a friend of a friend. It had been recorded near Bainbridge, Ohio just weeks earlier. It reached the team at Rocky Mountain Sasquatch organization. There's no audio on the original recording, but the dogs in frame don't need sound to make their reaction obvious. They're pacing, barking, clearly unsettled by something moving just outside the light.
On video, the dogs do not appreciate it being around. They appear to be upset and barking up a storm.
On thermal, the shape reads unmistakably upright and bipedal, nothing about its gait matching a deer or a bear crossing the yard. RMSO stabilized the footage and enlarged it by 150% to get a clearer read on the figure's movement, and while they worked through the frame by frame, they paired it with something else that had come in from the same general area only months earlier. On April 5th, Sean had sent over 2 separate audio recordings captured near Bainbridge by a friend on the ground, one taken in the early evening, the other well after dark. Both picked up long, low vocalizations, the kind that don't immediately match anything local. There were coyotes mixed into the background, which isn't unusual since a vocalization can draw other wildlife into the response, but underneath that, something else answers back, something that doesn't carry a coyote's pitch or pattern. The team boosted the recording by 40 decibels to bring both episodes out clearly, and the calls stayed consistent with each other, low, drawn out, and repeated in a rhythm that felt deliberate. 2 states away, in Arizona's Mogollon Rim, a well-documented hotspot for what locals have long called the Mogollon Monster, researcher Michael Velarde picked up something similar on the morning of June 14th, recording from just outside his camp at roughly 7,000 feet of elevation. Deep in Ponderosa Pine Forest, the team had already investigated on prior expeditions. Same kind of drawn-out vocalization, echoing across a wide-open canyon, answered from a different direction entirely. But it's what came after the recordings that made the team stop and take a second look. Out in the same Arizona terrain, the team found a set of prints pressed into soft ground beside what was clearly an elk track for comparison.
Whatever it was walking on its tiptoes. And from the last toe to the end of this toe was only 6 inches.
6 inches spread at the toes?
Yeah.
The elk print was unmistakable. Next to it sat something else entirely. A print showing a clear toe spread of roughly 6 inches from the smallest toe to the largest, with a heel line that was harder to place, shallow and indistinct compared to a full flat-footed step. Looking closer, the team realized why. Whatever made it hadn't planted its full foot at all. It looked like it had been walking on its toes, the way a person shifts their weight forward onto the balls of their feet instead of coming down flat-heeled. A print that size, walking that way, next to a fresh elk track for scale, left the team with more questions than the footage alone ever could. 2 states, 2 sets of unexplained vocalizations that answer each other almost like a call and response, a thermal figure that sent a yard full of dogs into a panic, and a footprint that doesn't move like anything walking on 4 legs or flat feet. Taken apart, each piece has an explanation. Taken together, it's harder to look away from. Do you think a person or a bear could ever produce a track that looks like that? Some landscapes are so steep and unforgiving that simply walking across them seems nearly impossible. Loose rocks, thick vegetation, and uneven ground can turn every step into a challenge, even for experienced hikers. One video shared on Reddit's r/Bigfoot community has attracted widespread attention because it appears to show a large figure moving across this kind of difficult terrain with surprising ease. The post includes 2 different clips that many viewers have studied closely, hoping to determine exactly what the camera captured. The footage begins with a wide view of a steep hillside covered with trees, rocks, and dense brush. The camera slowly scans the slope, and at first, nothing appears out of the ordinary. The rugged terrain alone makes it clear how difficult it would be for anyone to cross the hillside on foot.
A couple big bucks running around here. But anyways, I'll probably have to make a video later. I think I'll make a video later on after dark. But in the meantime, one of our followers of the channel is now a contributor and sent some amazing video of a black upright being in broad daylight ripping down a cliff along some cliff faces through gullies and did not stop and kept ripping.
As the recording continues, a large, dark figure suddenly becomes visible moving across the hillside. The figure appears to remain upright while maintaining a slow, steady, and deliberate pace over the uneven ground. Many viewers have pointed to the smooth way it moves across the slope, although the distance and video quality make it difficult to identify exactly what the figure is. Its unusual movement is what has kept the footage at the center of online debate. The video then cuts to a second clip that provides a closer view of the same subject. From this angle, the figure can be seen continuing through thick brush and across rocky ground without appearing to stop or lose its balance. The closer perspective gives viewers a better look, but it still offers no clear answer about what is being recorded. That uncertainty has become one of the main reasons the clip continues to be discussed online.
Instead of taking trails, you just side-hilled all through this shit. It was on top of this cliff. Came down that, straight down, and then walked over. Now he's over there.
In the final part of the video, the figure continues along the upper section of the hillside before eventually disappearing behind the trees. The camera remains fixed on the area for several more moments, almost as if waiting for the figure to emerge again. But it never does. The recording ends without a clear conclusion, leaving viewers with more questions than answers. The footage has sparked ongoing debate among people interested in unexplained sightings. Some believe it shows an unknown creature moving through the mountains, while others think there may be a more ordinary explanation. Despite countless replays and discussions, no explanation has been universally accepted, which is why the video continues to circulate among Bigfoot enthusiasts and skeptics alike. At 8:51 p.m., a massive, deep vocalization shattered the silence of Washington's Olympic Peninsula. Seconds later, something heavy began crashing through the dense brush toward the research team. Hidden somewhere beyond the trees, whatever made the haunting call never revealed itself, but it clearly wanted the investigators to know it was there.
Man.
What was that? I didn't quite hear that. It came from that way. Yeah, I did.
I even heard it.
Are they making noise? Wonder if they're howling.
Why would they?
Chris knows better.
Did you hear that?
Whatever had made the noise moved with deliberate heavy force, snapping branches and crashing through the dense forest undergrowth. The sounds didn't resemble an animal casually moving through the forest. Each heavy step seemed measured, as if whatever was out there wanted the investigators to know it was nearby without ever revealing itself. The researchers froze, listening for another call, but the silence that followed felt almost more unsettling than the vocalization itself. Every second stretched longer as they searched the darkness for any sign of movement. This wasn't the first time the Olympic Project team had faced such unnerving occurrences. In previous years, researchers like Shane Corson and Todd Hale had navigated these same ridges, searching for evidence of a creature many locals suspect inhabits these mountains. On one prior excursion, while traversing a steep ridgeline, the researchers had accidentally stumbled upon something unexpected. A sudden slip on a log created a loud noise, which seemingly alerted a massive creature lurking nearby. The animal, which they estimated to be over 7 feet tall, didn't flee like a typical bear. Instead, it retreated momentarily, only to circle around behind them in a calculated, intelligent display of movement.
We're going through this off trail. We came upon something. I think it hurt us, because right when that went on, Shane said, "You hear that? You hear that? Something's over there." Yeah, you know, it was really clear something large was busting through the brush up ahead of us and just heading down the ridge. Big, breaking branches. We both drew our weapons. It went from straight in front of us down to the left.
The evidence of this intelligence is etched into the very landscape. In 2016, a timber surveyor discovered a series of ground nests of massive, woven structures made of huckleberry branches and forest debris that suggested a permanent or semi-permanent presence in the area. During the filming of this investigation by Small Town Monsters, the team ventured into these same deep wood sites to camp overnight, becoming the first to document the area in such a manner.
And this is the first time you guys ever camped in this area? Down here, yeah.
Right, usually we camp on the outskirts of this area, several hundred yards away, and now we're right in the thick of things. I mean, we're right down here. First time ever, we designed it this way, and probably maybe down the road, keep doing this sort of camping experience down here.
Inside one of these nests, which spanned roughly 6 by 8 feet, the researchers found signs that defy standard animal behavior. The huckleberry branches had been meticulously stripped of leaves, creating a soft, bowl-like depression.
The one that Derek was talking about that's like 6 feet by 8 feet. Wow. We went over to that, and there's no way you would think bear. I mean, just massive, and it's actually, it looks almost as if it was kind of dug out a little bit, so it kind of makes a bowl, and then you had all that huckleberry just woven around it, and just massive quantities.
The team members, experienced in tracking local wildlife, noted that this level of construction and site selection, positioned on a finger of land that offered a clear view of approaching threats, is highly inconsistent with known regional fauna. As the night deepened during the current expedition, the atmosphere remained heavy with tension. Every snap of a twig or shift in the wind prompted the group to scan the tree line with thermal optics. The team, having spent years documenting these sightings, remained convinced that the sheer difficulty of reaching these sites makes a human hoax statistically impossible.
Oh, night vision though.
It does.
I don't need them. I don't need mine yet.
No, I don't. My night vision was shooting looking through this thing. But I mean, we're not sneaking up on anything. Everything already knows we're here.
Right.
Yeah.
As the darkness swallowed the valley, the group remained on high alert, listening to the forest for any return of the mysterious vocalizations that had signaled their presence earlier in the evening. What do you think was making those sounds in the middle of the Olympic wilderness? A child's scream cut through the trees near Klingman's Dome, and within seconds, hikers were pulling out their phones. It was 2024, at the highest point in Tennessee, roughly 6,644 feet above sea level. along one of the most heavily trafficked trails in the Great Smoky Mountains. A small group had stopped mid-hike when something in the tree line caught their attention. Voices rose fast, confused, urgent, overlapping. Someone was already recording before most of the group even understood what they were looking at. The child's scream wasn't playful. It was the kind of sound that makes adults stop walking and start looking. Cameras came up, people pointed.
Bigfoot. Do you see it? Look at it. Great.
Whatever was in the trees wasn't moving, but it was clearly holding everyone's attention, and nobody was laughing. As more phones turned toward the woods, the footage zoomed in, and that's when the shape became harder to explain away. A tall figure stood motionless among the trees, upright, still, watching, or simply waiting. It was impossible to tell which. One member of the group offered the first guess anyone dared to say out loud. It looked like it could be a bear. But bears don't stand like that. This figure was on two legs, holding its posture with a stillness that didn't match anything in the group's experience with wildlife. The footage, recorded on a hiker's phone and later shared online, quickly caught attention because of exactly how ordinary the moment felt, right up until it didn't. This wasn't a remote trail camera catching something in the dead of night. This was broad daylight, a busy trail, a crowd of witnesses, and a shape that refused to explain itself. The person filming kept the camera locked on the figure, clearly trying to get a clean, stable shot as the group debated in the background, bear, hoax, something else entirely. What makes the footage unsettling isn't dramatic movement. It's the opposite. The figure doesn't run, it doesn't charge. It simply stands there among the trees, upright and still, while a crowd of strangers point cameras at it from a distance. No growl, no crashing brush, no obvious explanation, just a tall, two-legged shape holding its ground at one of the most visited overlooks in the entire park.
What's he doing?
Clingman's Dome sees hundreds of thousands of visitors a year, and sightings like this are rare enough that when one surfaces with multiple witnesses and multiple phones rolling at once, it's hard to dismiss outright. The group never got close enough to confirm what they were looking at. By the time the figure either moved off or the recording ended, the questions outnumbered the answers. Was it a bear standing upright for a few unusual seconds? Or was it something the trail rarely gives up a clear look at, caught here in broad daylight by sheer chance? What do you think was standing in those trees? On Salish Sasquatch, the unexplained comes alive. In 2013, Jonathan and Ben Brown captured a heat signature on their property, far larger than any known animal. Years later, this footage remains one of the most compelling pieces of Bigfoot evidence, a chilling reminder that something watches from just beyond the edge of the familiar.
In 2013, brothers Jonathan and Ben Brown recorded a Sasquatch on their property with a thermal camera. This is a recall of that event.
The brothers sat in silence, farm sounds all around. Then, a soft, deliberate tapping from behind. Jonathan lifted the thermal camera. Among the cattle, a shape appeared, low, with a human-shaped head, moving unlike any animal. It watched them. For the first time that night, the weight of being observed was unmistakable.
Anyhow, Ben and I are sitting out here, my brother Ben and I, and we're thinking like, man, it's so loud out right now. But then there was one point where we heard this light tapping, and it was coming directly behind us. And that was when I got out the thermal camera and was looking around, and yes, there was plenty of cows around, but there was something with a human-shaped head that was laying close to the ground, and I was looking at it, and I was like, Ben, there's something on here that...
The figure lingered, unseen but present. Jonathan realized he wasn't recording. Panic surged. He handed the camera to Ben. Finally, the device captured the presence that had been silently watching all along.
At that point, I'm thinking that I'm recording, then I realize that I'm not recording. And I go, hey Ben, it's not recording. I was taking snapshots at the time. And so I hand the thermal camera over to Ben, and then that's when Ben gets it recording.
What should have been an ordinary night became extraordinary. Jonathan handed the camera to Ben just as a massive figure appeared. Broad shoulders, human-shaped head. Among the grazing cattle, it moved differently. Something far beyond explanation.
John just decided he wanted to look through the thermal. I wasn't expecting anything, but suddenly he's like, hey, I got something here, and it's just right over there. So he was looking at it for a while. He handed it to me. I pushed record. And yeah, you saw in that video, the shoulders and the head. For the first little bit, I was just trying to figure out how this is a cow, because there were still cows walking right here. You could see that in the video too. So my mind was telling me this isn't what I'm looking at.
A cow wandered by, closer than the figure, calm and unbothered. Yet the presence beside it felt different, familiar to the animal, alien to the humans, deepening the mystery. After carefully reviewing the footage and considering every possibility, all signs pointed to one startling reality. Something was watching them. A silent, deliberate presence, unseen yet fully aware of every move they made.
After all of my analysis, I've never been able to come up with any alternative explanation other than that it's a Sasquatch observing John and Ben as they're filming it.
As the cow moved past, Jonathan analyzed the figure. Nothing matched. Cows, bears, any known animal. Features were missing. What remained defied explanation. Something neither fully human nor animal.
In fact, partway through the video, we see a cow wandering past. In attempting to make some kind of comparison, I used many silhouettes of cows in different degrees of poses to resolve the question. I was unable to make any match at all. A real concern was with the ears. A cow's ears will show up on thermal very easily, and they seem to be absent from what we could only surmise as the head area of the subject. Using a bear for comparison wasn't any better, but that doesn't exclude the possibility of it being a person.
On the ridge where the figure appeared, they found a massive 16-inch footprint, larger than anything else on the property. Its curve suggested it adapted to the slope. Frame by frame, Jonathan studied the footage, each image deepening the mystery of what had left its mark.
We've also filled in part of the ridge where he was standing. But if you notice that this is a very steep hill and he was standing right here.
The print cast on site measures 16 inches. We have found other prints in the same size on our property, but they lack the unique bend that this print has. I believe the bend is due to the steep hill that the Sasquatch was standing on.
Jonathan whistled, and the creature locked its gaze on the camera. Thermal images revealed a crest along the skull, glowing eyes, and a towering, muscular frame. Even bone structures were visible beneath its mass. The team closed with eerie audio, the sounds of the unknown lingering long after.
I came across the moment that Jonathan whistles and the Sasquatch looks directly at the camera. Note the sagittal crest on his skull, a trait not shared by humans. The eyes, which glow hottest through a thermal, are obvious, as well as the massive pectorals, deltoids, and trapezius muscles. The clavicle bone on the Sasquatch is also clearly visible. We leave you with an audio clip from our property. Thank you for watching.
After the tapping, heat signature, massive footprints, and piercing gaze, one question remains. What watches from the shadows, unseen but fully aware, just beyond the edge of the familiar? Sometimes the people searching for Bigfoot aren't the ones who find it. Sometimes it finds them first. That's what happened on a cold winter morning in 2014 when Sean Sullivan took his 8-year-old son Brendan on a routine hike through a national forest in Arkansas. It was a trail they'd walked many times before, making what happened next even harder to explain. About 20 minutes into the hike, Brendan stopped to play on a patch of ice while Sean took in the quiet around them. Then everything changed. From somewhere deeper in the woods came the sound of heavy breathing, followed almost immediately by a deep, guttural growl unlike anything Sean had ever heard before.
Ray, shh. Listen carefully. It's the sound of heavy breathing. And then...
What is it?
A menacing, deep growl.
As he scanned the tree line, he noticed movement. Partially hidden behind the brush was a dark figure standing among the trees. Sean immediately called Brendan over, told him to stay behind him, and kept filming as the figure remained just out of clear view.
Wait, shh. What is it? Shh. What is it? Hey, get over here. Get over here, Rafe. What is it?
Then it let out another loud snort. Sean didn't wait to find out what it was. He grabbed Brendan, and the two hurried back down the trail as fast as they could.
Are you kidding me? All right, let's go, Rafe, go.
But whatever they'd encountered didn't seem ready to let them leave. As they retreated through the forest, Sean could still hear heavy movement and rustling behind them. Every few moments, it sounded as though something was following them through the trees, keeping pace just out of sight. Finally, he stopped and looked back. For just a brief moment, the same dark figure emerged from behind a tree before slipping back into the forest. Sean immediately turned around and ran, refusing to risk another encounter with whatever had been watching them. Later, investigators who reviewed the footage pointed out several details they found difficult to dismiss. The figure appeared upright and bipedal, peeking from behind the tree in a way that didn't resemble a deer or any other known animal. Combined with the deep vocalizations captured during the encounter, some researchers suggested it could be one of the strongest alleged Bigfoot videos ever recorded.
The noise that we're hearing in this clip is kind of interesting to me, but what they capture on camera looks very humanoid in nature, and it's very hard to see because he's just behind the brush, but you do capture a glimpse of what looks like.
Sean still can't explain what happened that morning. He insists it wasn't a bear or any animal he'd encountered before. The way it moved, the sounds it made, and the way it seemed to follow them convinced him there was intelligence behind its actions. Whether the creature was actually hunting them or simply trying to drive two unexpected visitors out of its territory remains unknown. What do you think Sean and Brendan really came face to face with in those woods? On Travel Channel, the journey moves beyond the familiar and into the unknown. Kitu Vituak Lichard, from a long line of native shamans, recounts her encounters with Bigfoot, beings not as myths, but as mighty forces of nature. For generations, her people honored their presence, avoiding their territory. Tonight, viewers are brought deep into the lands where her remarkable stories unfold.
Stories of Bigfoot go way back. They go way further back than when Westerners came here. The native people knew about them for a long time, and they weren't considered a mythology for the native people. They're just considered a fact of life. You respect them, you don't mess with them because they're powerful.
Bigfoot rises like a living mountain, shoulders wide and movements radiating sheer power. Witnesses report it towering from 6 to 12 feet, its shadow overwhelming any human nearby. To stand before it is to feel the weight of its presence, intimidating, enigmatic, and unmistakably alive, a force of nature that commands respect.
Bigfoot are probably about as wide as I am tall. They have very broad, muscular shoulders. Imagine encountering something that's 6'2" across and 8 foot tall, 12 foot tall. It's a pretty intimidating creature.
Despite the risk, Sarah and Ray were drawn back to the site of their sighting. Sarah, guided by her sharp intuition and connection to the wilderness, led them to the spot. There, massive footprints appeared, human in shape but far larger, with every toe and heel sharply etched. For Sarah, the prints were both eerie and surreal, proof that the legends she had heard were frighteningly real.
We start looking on the ground, and sure enough, we saw these incredibly large foot tracks all over this area. You could clearly see the toe prints and the heel, and it was shaped just like a human foot, but much larger.
Keith Lindsay, a dedicated metal detecting enthusiast, explored the Alaska Triangle along the riverbanks, expecting a quiet day. His routine outing became extraordinary when he discovered massive footprints in the mud, far too large for any human. Kneeling to examine them, he realized each step surpassed anything he had seen before. Suddenly, the river and surrounding wilderness seemed alive with hidden secrets, hinting at a visitor few had ever glimpsed.
Well, it was the spring of 2012, late April, and I heard on the TV that the river was at an all-time low. So, being my hobby's metal detecting, I thought I'd come down to the river and see what I could find. I came down, I started metal detecting, and then when I turned, I looked up this way and I saw these big footprints. So I thought, that's strange, so I walked over to investigate them.
Gigantic footprints stretched in a nearly perfect line, each step over 6 feet long, a hallmark of Bigfoot. Unlike human prints with a left-right rhythm, these were flat, unarched, and strikingly precise, showing deliberate movement. The size and alignment made even skeptics stop in their tracks. For Keith, who had never seriously considered Bigfoot, this was undeniable proof. Something extraordinary was moving through these wild lands.
I never really thought about Bigfoot until I found these footprints. You know, I'm just to the point where I believe it could be.
Don't shoot it unless it threatens us. Let's check it out. Wait, you go first.
It's right, dude, it just peeked out of the tree right there.
I see it, it's right at your 12.
Adam tries to draw whatever it is to them.
Adam, fearless and drawn to the unknown, issued a haunting call into the forest. Suddenly, Bean saw movement. A massive, towering figure, hairy and swift, almost unreal.
Bean spotted some movement in the trees, and he called out and said, "Hey, I've got something." And I ran up the hill, and I looked, and what I caught a glimpse of was something big, tall, and hairy. But it took off, boom.
It vanished into the shadows, then reappeared briefly 100 yards away before disappearing entirely, leaving Adam stunned and the forest charged with mystery.
As soon as it saw me, and then I started following up on it, and before I knew it, it was 100 yards from me. And I just caught a glimpse of it down to where I saw it last before it disappeared in the trees.
The expedition had been quiet, almost too quiet, until the unexpected. Through the thermal camera's flicker, the team glimpsed a massive figure, upright and purposeful, a shadowy giant defying explanation. In that instant, the forest felt alive, as if it had been guarding its secrets. Until now.
I always hope to get something. It's always a little disappointing when not, but
you've got to press on.
It's a long shot.
Got to press on.
Yeah. We did get thermal imaging of a bipedal large beast.
Every piece of evidence points to something remarkable. So the question remains, are we seeing a legend or confronting a reality beyond what we are ready to comprehend? Washington's Hoh Rainforest in Olympic National Park is known for its towering trees, thick moss, and lush green landscape. The quiet trails and dense vegetation make it one of the most recognizable forests in the Pacific Northwest. During what was supposed to be a peaceful hike, a visitor recorded a short video while following her daughter along the trail. After reviewing the footage, some viewers noticed what appears to be a dark figure standing deeper in the forest. The video begins with the camera moving along a quiet trail lined with large ferns and towering trees covered in moss. The person filming follows the path at a relaxed pace, capturing the peaceful surroundings as sunlight filters through the forest canopy. As the camera turns toward a brighter opening in the woods, a tall, dark figure can be seen standing among the distant trees. The figure appears to remain still and is partially hidden by branches and thick vegetation, making it difficult to identify exactly what is being seen. Because the sighting lasts only a few moments, viewers have reached different conclusions about what the footage actually shows. In the final moments of the recording, the camera continues moving along the trail and briefly passes behind a large moss-covered tree. For a split second, the dark figure can still be seen in the background before it is completely hidden from view as the path curves away. The clip ends without another clear look at the subject. Since it was shared online, the short video has become another source of debate among people interested in unexplained sightings. Some believe the figure is something unusual hidden among the trees, while others think there may be a simpler explanation. Because the footage is brief and distant, the question of what was standing in the rainforest remains unanswered. In March 1967, in the quiet town of Fairhaven, Massachusetts, an ordinary moment turned into the beginning of a lifelong search for answers. Before becoming a respected paranormal researcher with over 4 decades of investigations behind him, Matt Moniz was just a young man who encountered something he could not explain. That mysterious event would stay with him for years, eventually leading him into the world of unexplained phenomena, where countless strange cases and impossible encounters would follow.
Hi, I'm Matt Moniz. I'm a local researcher in the Bridgewater Triangle. I'm the science advisor for the show Spooky South Coast. We've been on the air for the past 18 years. I've been researching the unexplained for over 40 years, and in that time I've come across a number of different unusual, paranormal, and extreme cases of the unexplained. I'll share with you the very first paranormal experience I ever had.
While driving through a quiet, remote area of southern Massachusetts, his mother experienced a moment that would become one of the strangest encounters of her life. As she made her way toward his father's childhood farm, she rounded a corner and suddenly noticed a mysterious figure standing near the roadside. At first, it looked like a person wearing a fur coat, but within seconds, everything changed. The figure suddenly rushed across the road, moving far faster than expected, forcing her to slam on the brakes. Then, in a shocking burst of movement, it struck the hood of the vehicle, jumped away, grabbed a nearby tree, and swung around to face her. With the driver's side window only inches away, she came face to face with something she could never explain, a case later covered by small-town monsters.
My mother, who was 9 months pregnant with me at that time, was traveling home to my father's childhood farm to pick him up. While she was traveling there, it is a rural area in southern Massachusetts, as she was rounding a corner, she saw what she thought was, and I quote, a hippie in a fur coat on the corner of the road. And as she rounded the corner to it, it darted across the road. She had to slam on her brakes. The thing actually slammed its hand on the hood and jumped off the road. And after it jumped off the road, it grabbed a tree, spun around and faced her, who is now stopped with the window to her driver's side right parallel with it.
She described the figure as something that looked human, but was clearly not. Tall, muscular, and covered in reddish hair, it had gray skin and dark fingernails. In a split second, the strange being stopped and locked eyes with her. For over a minute, they stood completely still, silently watching each other. She felt no immediate threat, but she knew she had witnessed something beyond explanation. a creature that seemed to exist between the human and the unknown, and when the figure finally disappeared, the encounter remained impossible to forget.
She described this thing as a red-haired, human-looking, but she said it wasn't completely human. She commonly would refer to it as a missing link. She said it had black fingernails, gray skin. It was very muscular and tall. She sat there looking at it for about a minute and a half, and it sat there looking at her. She didn't feel threatened, but she was able to see, number one, that it was male, that it was naked, and that it was covered in hair colored similar to an Irish setter. There was an Irish setter down the road from my grandfather's farm called Rusty, and she said it had Rusty's colored fur. That's what she would always refer to it as. So this is, like I said, before the famous Patterson and Gimlin film.
After nearly 2 decades in the Boston area, the researcher returned to their hometown of Hanson and began uncovering the hidden history behind the region's Native American connections. What started as a simple search soon led to the mysteries of the Bridgewater Triangle, a place surrounded by decades of unexplained encounters. As the investigation continued, past experiences began to make more sense, revealing a deeper connection to the strange events reported across the area. In 2014, they documented Bigfoot accounts from the region, but the number of reports continued to increase.
I lived in the Boston area for about 20 years, and when I moved back to my hometown of Hanson, when I started a family, I started wondering why everything was named after Native Americans in my town, and sent me on a deep dive into figuring out why. And at the same time, I learned about the Bridgewater Triangle, and I had a number of experiences growing up, and I kind of felt relieved when I heard about the Bridgewater Triangle because it seemed like a logical explanation for some of the crazy things that myself and my family had experienced. I published a book in 2014 about published accounts in the Bridgewater Triangle of Bigfoot. It's in the process of being revised because since then there has been so many more reports. When I initially wrote this, I call it more of a pamphlet because it wasn't that long because there was not that many stories at the time.
A shocking discovery on a secluded 10-acre property revealed a footprint unlike anything expected. A massive 19.5-inch track pressed into the ground. Far larger than any ordinary human print, it immediately raised questions about what could have left it behind. With no simple explanation available, the strange finding became another unsettling mystery, adding to the growing number of unexplained encounters connected to the unknown.
A friend of mine found 19.5-inch print in her yard, which is like 10 acres of private property, and I don't know, nothing would surprise me, you know.
While camping in the Bridgewater area, a peaceful night suddenly turned into a terrifying encounter. Without warning, something approached the tent and began tapping against the fabric from the outside. When the camper pulled open the flap, a massive face was staring back at them in the darkness. After a few tense moments, the figure moved away. But as it left, it grabbed the top of the tent, leaving behind a chilling mystery that defied explanation.
Where they were camping out in the Bridgewater area, this thing basically, even though it was a tent, it knocked on the tent, like touching it, tapping it, and they pulled open the flap to see this very large face staring back at them inside the tent. After a matter of few minutes, when they heard the thing walk off, literally just grabbed the top of the tent.
In the middle of the day, while searching for forgotten artifacts along Pine Street in Middleborough, a routine exploration turned into a terrifying encounter. As they investigated an old cellar hole near a historic marker, an unfamiliar presence emerged from the surrounding area. Suddenly, a deep, powerful sound erupted from the darkness, followed by the sight of a shadowy figure nearby. The noise was so intense, they felt it through their bodies. Even with their experience as Marines, they knew something was wrong. and they quickly abandoned the search.
Facts they could find. Off of a road called Pine Street in Middleborough, broad daylight, they were going by this area that had a rock with a plaque on it mentioning or dedicating to who had lived there prior. And they went to go look at, the cellar hole. As they were walking, a guttural sound, the way they put it, and a dark figure in the back. So much so that sound, they said, reverberated in their own chests. They said the sound was so loud and so threatening that they said, we're both Marines, we retreated. Now, for a Marine to retreat, that means there's something they think is serious, okay? And they said that they ran out like little schoolgirls.
After decades of unexplained encounters in the Bridgewater Triangle, one question still remains. What is truly hiding within this mysterious region? Let us know what you believe lies behind these chilling mysteries. That wasn't the only footage where the reaction said as much as the sighting itself. This time, the camera was mounted on a moving ATV, and the rider never even slowed down. The rider was moving fast, the engine echoing through the trees as the narrow trail disappeared beneath the wheels. With only seconds to react to anything ahead, a dark shape suddenly emerged from the tree line and crossed the track. The rider instinctively jerked the handlebars, swerving sharply off the trail before regaining control and continuing forward. Whether the reaction was triggered by the figure itself or simply by something unexpected appearing in the rider's path is impossible to know, but the timing was enough to leave viewers questioning exactly what crossed the trail. Once the footage is slowed down and zoomed in, the shape crossing the track comes into sharp focus. Long strides, an unmistakable upright gait, and a build that dwarfs anything a deer or a bear could produce. At that speed, it moves like something built to run on 2 legs, not 4. The figure doesn't stumble, doesn't glance toward the camera, doesn't react to the sound of the approaching engine. It simply crosses the track and disappears back into the trees, gone almost as fast as it appeared. What makes this one different from most trail footage is what happens afterward. Rather than just raw video, the rider or someone reviewing the clip pulled still frames from the moment the figure crossed, freezing it mid-stride. Those images circulated alongside the original clip, giving viewers a chance to study the shape frame by frame instead of relying on a few blurry seconds of motion. Whoever compiled the footage clearly wanted a permanent record of what had crossed that track, not just a passing glimpse. And that's where the real unease sets in, not in the figure itself, but in how little anyone in the video seems to make of it. There's no scream, no shouting, no one pulling over to point or debate what just happened. The rider swerves, corrects course, and keeps going, almost as if a close encounter with an 8-foot figure sprinting across an ATV trail was simply something to steer around and move past. No follow-up, no second look back toward the tree line. Just a return to the ride, engine still running, trail still ahead. The entire encounter lasted only a few seconds before the figure disappeared back into the trees, leaving behind nothing but a brief clip and countless theories. Whether it was an unusually large animal, a trick of perspective, or something far more unusual, has never been confirmed. The rider never stopped to investigate or explain what happened, leaving viewers to draw their own conclusions. The team is deep in the woods when an unsettling thought suddenly crosses their minds. What if they keep searching and uncover something they were never meant to find? Then, a massive rock among the trees raises even more questions. An X is clearly marked across its surface, while strange patterns cover the surrounding rocks and trees. The deeper they look, the less ordinary the area seems. Nothing about the location feels right, and after spending hours there, the team still has no idea what else may be hidden nearby. Then, without warning, the forest gives them another reason to stop. And every unanswered question makes the forest feel more alive with each passing minute.
I see it now. I don't want to come back.
That is Fear Rock's daddy right here.
Wow.
This is a big rock.
Look at the X on top of it.
Yeah, look at the trees and stuff on it. What the heck? I mean, guys, how long have we been here?
Yeah, there's nothing normal about any of this over here.
Gosh, I wish I'd do it one more time. Who's got it? Who's got it?
Hold my...
A twisted tree stands out among the others, but before the team can examine it, a deep growl suddenly tears through the darkness. Everyone freezes. The sound has come from behind them, somewhere along the path they had just traveled. They turn toward the trees, searching for any sign of movement, but the forest remains completely still. No figure appears, no branches move, only the silence remains. Whatever made that sound is somewhere nearby, and the team may have walked much closer to it than they realize.
Did you hear that? That sounded like a growl.
Which way?
It's way off over where we just come from.
Yeah.
I don't like that camera angle I was having just now.
Then, something suddenly flies through the darkness. The distance it covers is impossible to ignore, and the team from Sasquatch Watchers has no idea where it came from. Could someone be hidden among the trees, deliberately launching objects in their direction, or is something else trying to force them away? Before anyone can reach an answer, another object cuts through the forest. The team barely has time to react. This is no longer a strange noise coming from somewhere in the shadows. Something is sending objects deep into the woods with incredible force, and the next one could come from anywhere.
What'd you hear?
There's something just letting her loose. You're good.
I'll hold a little bit. Take turns.
Oh, you're good. I still think something was shooting at it.
I do too.
I mean, somebody could have been terrified. I don't know.
I'm leaning towards your theory.
Yeah, I do.
Well, let's try to... That was good.
Farther down the road, another strange moment unfolds. A sudden burst of noise races through the darkness, sounding almost like a dog running and barking somewhere ahead. Then it stops. The silence is immediate. Before the team can understand what they just heard, a glowing shape appears in the middle of the trail. Everyone focuses on the same spot, trying to identify it, but the strange light offers no clear answer. For a moment, the entire road seems to disappear around that unexplained shape. Something is standing or glowing out there in the darkness, and the team has no idea what they are looking at.
Was it Bigfoot or Dogman though?
I don't know. We got bluff charged by something imitating something vicious because that scared me to death. I haven't been that scared since the old run days at Rex's.
I'm gonna be totally honest with y'all. You know what it sounded like? The movement? It sounded like something bipedal on two legs, running and barking like a dog.
Yeah.
Did you not hear that? I'm sure the camera picked it up.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
People in the chat watching, comment and tell us if you heard the same thing we did about that.
Then, the sound from the trail becomes even more disturbing. The movement seems to belong to something running upright on two legs, yet the noise coming from the darkness sounds like a dog barking. The combination makes no sense. The team hears the strange movement again, and the sound seems close enough to send a chill through the group. Whatever is traveling through the darkness is moving quickly, but its strange rhythm makes it impossible to identify. Nothing about the sound matches what the team expects to hear from an ordinary animal in the woods.
This is bad juju.
Very bad juju.
Jeepers.
Big dark shadow in the sky.
Jeepers creepers.
That one right there?
What the world?
dark shadow
Hang on,
in
let me
the
get a
sky.
picture of this with my phone. Hold that real quick.
Help me hold something.
Hold on.
You got it?
Yeah, I'm gonna do that awesome shoot with our phone. It's gotta get there.
That's
It's like a
right there.
stealth. Something stealth.
Something's in the sky. And I
The
told you
mothership?
something just flew over my head.
The mothership?
I don't know.
Then the river erupts. A rock crashes into the water. Another follows. Then a third lands from a different direction. The team quickly realizes these are not stones sliding down the bank. Something is throwing them. But the situation becomes even more disturbing when the noise appears to shift away from the shore. Movement breaks across the water itself. The team watches as the river is disturbed again, yet nothing can be seen beneath the darkness. Whatever is causing it may be close enough to reach the water, powerful enough to hurl large rocks, and hidden well beyond the camera's view. And after everything that has happened, one final possibility makes the moment even more frustrating. The camera may not have been recording when it happened. What do you think was really happening in those woods?
Gonna do a 360 pan.
Where you at?
Huh?
You all right with the rock?
Dude.
John, Vern.
Huh?
I just got hit with a f***ing rock.
A GoPro mounted to a truck's bumper was already rolling on October 14, 2010, as Edward C.M. drove out of Algonquin Park after a canoe trip when his wife spotted something on the roadside that had no business being there. The footage opens on a wide shot of the road as the truck rolls past, and within seconds, a large, dark figure comes into view near the tree line, tall, upright, and gone from frame almost as fast as it appeared. Edward wasn't out looking for anything unusual that day. He regularly films crown and rural land while driving through the area, more interested in documenting the landscape than catching wildlife on camera. But coming back from a canoe trip deep in the park, the camera picked up something neither of them expected to see. Slowed down, the raw GoPro footage reveals in more detail a dark-colored figure moving at the edge of the road, its posture and movement distinct from a bear or a moose. There's no clear face shot, no second angle to confirm it, just a brief, unfiltered glimpse from a camera that wasn't even pointed at the woods to begin with. The clip was first uploaded to Edward's own YouTube channel over a decade ago, long before the reposts and re-uploads that have circulated since. This version is shared with his permission. No follow-up sighting was ever reported along that stretch of road, and the family never went back to investigate further. All that remains is the 15 seconds their bumper camera happened to catch on the way home from Algonquin Park. Was this really Bigfoot walking the edge of the park that October day? Or something else entirely? Meet the team behind Small Town Monsters, investigators who venture where history and the unknown collide. On this night, they head into the shadows along the Little Tennessee River. Joined by Jesse, Joe, and Jeff Carpenter, they prepare for a nighttime operation near the abandoned remains of Needmore, a town long erased from maps, but not from memory. As darkness falls and the river flows quietly beside them, the team begins their investigation in a place shaped by isolation, forgotten roads, and a past that refuses to stay buried.
It's getting dark out. Right now, I am waiting to get picked up by Jesse and Joe of Hellbent Holler. And Jesse, Joe, and myself, along with Jeff Carpenter and Heather and Courtney, are going down to the Little Tennessee River and doing a night ops on the banks of the river. We're going to try to sort of walk along the road where Needmore used to be, but I'm excited because this will be my first time being down there at nighttime.
Years ago, this quiet bend of the Little Tennessee River became the center of a chilling report, one that still haunts the area. A witness described a massive figure emerging from the water, hauling itself up the riverbank and disappearing across the road near the abandoned town. It was a brief encounter, but it transformed this forgotten place into something far more unsettling. Tonight, That story guides every move. Under the cover of darkness, the team combs the river's edge, pressing into a night where visibility is low and every sound carries. Jeff positions investigators on both sides of the river, separated by moving water and deep shadows. If the plan works, they cover more ground. But as night tightens its grip, the greater question looms. Are they searching? Or is something else already watching from the tree line?
This is the same place where there was a sighting a number of years ago of Bigfoot actually crossing the Little Tennessee and going up the bank and across the road, directly across the river from where Needmore used to be. So that's our plan for the night. We're going to go scout around, probably do a night hike. Jeff wanted to sort of put teams on both sides of the river, so hopefully we can pull that off. But
the focus shifts to the Little Tennessee River near the abandoned site of Needmore, an area tied to multiple unsettling reports. Witnesses have seen figures moving along the riverbanks, while earlier investigations captured a compelling encounter near a remote utility site. Another sighting from the roadway reinforced the sense that this place is far from quiet. One local hunter added to the mystery. While working a nearby field, his dogs suddenly panicked and bolted toward the truck, even the most experienced visibly shaken. In an area marked by repeated encounters, that kind of fear suggests something powerful still lurks in the shadows along the river.
That was a really good sighting. And then, of course, Josh, like I said, had a sighting from the road kind of thing. And then had some other people. One of them was a cooner, then one his name mentioned. He had that big field, you know, it's got the equipment in it.
Mm-hmm.
Near the end of that, there's a trail, and his dogs had run in there. He was still in the field. One was an older dog, real experienced dog. The other was a younger dog. And he just heard this crazy commotion. Just the dogs were going crazy, and they went ball hooting, is the term I use, back towards the truck and hid underneath the truck. Both dogs, even the experienced dog.
Even seasoned investigators struggle to explain these accounts. What's clear? Unusual activity along the river isn't a one-time occurrence. Beyond sightings, quieter, deliberate incidents have been reported deeper in the area. Entire bushels of apples vanished, not scattered or dragged, but removed with intent. Small details perhaps, but in a region already marked by unexplained encounters, each subtle sign adds to the sense that something unseen is moving through the forest, leaving more questions than answers.
I don't know what to say about that.
Yeah.
But that's what happened. So there've been a few things on the river for sure. And then there's random reports, you know, from different areas, particularly back in here. Somebody had some apples get stolen, bushels of apples, not just drug off, but carried off kind of thing. I think that might be right.
A dark mass shifts in the distance, just enough to spark concern. The dense undergrowth hides its shape, leaving no clear outline. It's far enough away to blur the details, yet close enough to demand attention. The team hesitates. Turning on a light could reveal the truth, or make the situation far more unpredictable. One investigator keeps it in sight, while another moves to cut through the shadows, knowing that the moment the light comes on, whatever is watching may decide to act.
Does it look big enough to be a bear? Can't tell. It's obscured by the brush so much.
Oh yeah. It's how far in? It's you're talking about. I don't know. I'm tempted.
Why don't you white light it?
What's that?
White light it. I'm gonna stay on it. You white light it.
I'm actually thinking about it.
You gonna go? All right. I can follow you with this.
The moment passes in uneasy silence before doubt sets in. Someone senses a sound drifting in from the darkness, something low and distant, barely carried on the night air. Others pause, listening, unsure whether it was imagined or real. Whatever it was, the sound is faint and far away, yet unmistakably out of place. It does not announce itself or repeat, but its quiet presence lingers, leaving the group alert and questioning whether the night has just begun to respond.
Did you hear something?
I thought I heard a howl from that direction.
I thought, yeah, something is kind of faint.
It was very faint.
Yeah.
It was a distant.
I heard something for sure, but it was distant.
It was pretty far.
Or really quiet.
As the night deepens along the Little Tennessee River, who, or what, is truly moving through the darkness, and are the investigators the ones observing, or the ones being watched? Few places in North America feel as wild and untouched as Yosemite National Park. Known for its towering mountains, dense forests, and miles of remote backcountry that few visitors ever reach, the park has also become the setting for countless stories of unusual sightings over the years. One of the most discussed accounts dates back to 1973, when a park ranger identified as Officer Thompson reportedly recorded footage during a patrol along an isolated ridge. According to the story surrounding the video, the encounter happened unexpectedly and quickly became unlike anything the ranger had experienced before. The footage begins with the camera focused on a distant ridgeline. At first, nothing appears unusual, but as the shot continues, a large figure can be seen standing on the slope. According to the account, the figure appears to be between 7 and 8 feet tall, covered in dark brown hair, and moving upright across the rugged terrain. Because of the distance and the quality of the footage, it is difficult to make out fine details, but its remarkable size and upright posture have remained the center of debate for decades. As the encounter continues, the figure suddenly stops moving and appears to face in the direction of the ranger. The account says Officer Thompson slowly raises his hands, seemingly trying to show that he is not a threat. For several long moments, neither side appears to move, creating a quiet, uneasy standoff that has made this portion of the footage especially memorable. Near the end of the clip, the figure remains in place before sounds can be heard that have been described as deep, echoing vocalizations carrying through the surrounding wilderness. The camera stays fixed on the distant figure, as if waiting for something else to happen, until the recording suddenly comes to an end, leaving viewers without a clear explanation of what happened next. Although the footage lasts only a minute, it has continued to spark debate among people interested in unexplained sightings. Some believe it documents an encounter with an unknown creature, while others think there could be a more ordinary explanation. Decades later, no explanation has been universally accepted, leaving the reported Yosemite encounter as one of the most enduring and mysterious Bigfoot stories associated with the park. On Wild Man of the Wilderness, every encounter begins as an ordinary moment until the darkness answers back. One quiet night in North Texas, while arriving at his grandparents' rural home, a young witness, David, stepped out of the car and into the unknown. Behind the house stretched acres of dense woods, silent and unlit. As he stood near the wall, something large shifted in the shadows.
Carport, but it was an older house, and it was really tight, so my grandfather would always make me get out of the car in the driveway. And I got out, and it was dark, and he had a retaining wall at one end of his driveway, and I saw something over there move around, and I thought it was just a big black dog. So I started walking over there towards it.
At first glance, it looked like nothing more than a big dog. But in the stillness of that night, the movement felt deliberate, watchful, and that was only the beginning. As he moved closer, he caught a glimpse of something strange and fleeting. At first, he thought it might be a giant bird with tattered feathers hanging from what looked like wings.
And as I got closer, I thought for a split second maybe it was some kind of giant bird, because it looks like it had wings with feathers hanging down. And it was down on all fours, crouched down, trying to stay in the shadows behind this retaining wall. And I got right up to the edge of it and looked down there, and
the creature stayed low on all fours, pressing itself into the shadows behind the retaining wall, as if trying to vanish from sight. When it finally turned its gaze toward him, his first thought was that it was snarling like the family dog. But in the next instant, a chilling realization struck him. It wasn't snarling at all. It was smiling.
And first I thought it was wrinkling its lips, because we had a dog and it was always growling and wrinkling its lips at me. But then I realized, and this is all happening very fast, that it was smiling at me. And with these, my dad played the piano, and the best way I can describe it is that the teeth look like the yellow keys on the piano.
The face was unnervingly human, so real that his mind couldn't process it. Then the creature slowly raised a hand and beckoned him closer, a gesture so deliberate it froze him in place. Panic surged through him. He screamed and ran toward the house. His grandfather rushed outside, but when he returned, he insisted he hadn't seen a thing. That night became his first unforgettable encounter with something wild, intelligent, and terrifyingly real.
Just like this. And I had been kind of frozen looking at this thing, but when it did that, I screamed and started running in, and my grandfather had already gone in the house, and I told him that there was a big hairy man over there. And he looked concerned, grabbed his 12 gauge, ran out there, and I heard a shot go off, and he came back in and said he didn't see anything.
He had tried to push it from his mind, to forget the encounter entirely, but some things refused to stay buried. That summer, he found himself at camp, joining one of the camp's legendary Brazos River trips. Their journey led them to a remote campsite near a place called Chick Bend, not far from the shadow of Kyle Mountain. Locals whispered that the area had its own strange history, strange sightings, and unexplained events that even the nearby scout camp couldn't ignore. Little did he know, the wilderness there had a way of keeping its secrets close. Until now. The companion he shared the tent and the canoe with spoke up, his voice tight with disbelief. He had seen it again, higher up the trail. A tree loomed nearby, and without hesitation, they climbed it, scrambling to the top for a better view.
One guy said it was a wolf, some guy said it was a bear. Another guy said, no, it looks like a big monkey. And that was it. And then the next morning, we were all packing up, and this was probably 9 o'clock in the morning.
From above, they heard it. Something moving fast, pounding through the underbrush, vanishing as quickly as it appeared. They tore down the trail in pursuit, hearts racing. He was in the lead, rounding a jagged rock outcrop, then slammed into something solid. He felt it before he even saw it. Something alive, immense, brushing against him in the darkness, trying to escape its grip only to catch the glint of its eyes and hear a guttural roar that shook the air. Just then, his friend appeared, wide-eyed, and froze at the sight. Fear took over completely, and in a split second...
So I kind of did a crab walk backwards because I was on my back, and got up and I screamed. And then this thing roared, and just about that time, this friend of mine, he came running up. He saw it too, and we were so terrified that we jumped off of that cliff.
They both plunged off the edge of the cliff, tumbling into the unknown, the creature's presence still echoing in the night. That night would mark the moment the wilderness revealed a predator unlike anything they had ever imagined. It didn't take long for him to notice. A new kind of visitor was slipping into town, bold and unafraid. Pets disappeared, trash bins were overturned, and he began calling them the urban feet. The same pattern was emerging. Deer, raccoons, even predators were wandering into human spaces.
So that kind of started my journey on this thing. I started going down to the library and reading about this, and then I had seen, I can't remember the magazine, but I was down at the library. They had a magazine that had the 67 Patterson Gimlin, and they were talking about it then and talking about the footprint, so I was like, okay.
Not long ago, a mountain lion killed a deer in the vacant, proving the line between wilderness and town was vanishing fast. If creatures like this are slipping from the shadows into towns, watching, hunting, and disappearing without a trace, how much of the wilderness we think we know is really still wild, and how close are these? For decades, the forested hills around Mission, British Columbia have been linked to reports of something that many believe shouldn't exist. Locals, hikers, and outdoor enthusiasts have shared accounts of unusual sightings in the area, making it one of Canada's best-known locations for Bigfoot discussions. In 2013, an anonymous tourist shared a short video that was reportedly recorded while exploring these remote hills. According to the person who uploaded it, they had no idea anything unusual had been captured until they reviewed the footage later. The video begins with a handheld camera pointed toward a steep hillside covered in thick trees. The shot is slightly shaky, and the only sounds are distant birds and the eerie silence of the surrounding forest. At first, everything appears completely ordinary as the camera slowly scans the hillside, revealing nothing that seems out of place. Then, as the person filming zooms in toward an open section near the top of the ridge, a large, dark figure suddenly becomes visible. The figure appears to be walking across the slope on two legs, moving with a slow, steady, and deliberate pace. Because of the distance and the video quality, it is difficult to identify exactly what it is, but its upright movement is what has fueled years of debate among viewers. During the final part of the clip, the figure keeps moving across the hillside before reaching the tree line, where it gradually disappears from view behind the dense forest. The camera remains fixed on the area for several more moments, almost as if the person filming is waiting for it to appear again. But it never does. That ending has led many people to replay the footage, searching for any detail that might explain what crossed the ridge. Although the video is short and does not provide a clear answer, it continues to be discussed by people interested in Bigfoot reports. Some believe it shows an unknown creature, while others think there could be a more ordinary explanation. After years of debate, however, no explanation has been universally accepted, leaving the footage from Mission as one of the most enduring and mysterious Bigfoot clips discussed by enthusiasts today. The engine of the 14-foot aluminum boat had been cut, leaving David Stillo in near-total silence on a private lake near Spicer, Minnesota at 4 a.m. As he drifted toward the unlit boat dock, a sudden movement in the shallow water caught his eye. He looked to his right and realized he was not alone. Standing in the water was a massive, hulking shape that appeared to be fishing in the darkness. As he focused, the sheer scale of the figure became clear. It was between 9 and 10 feet tall, with a massive chest cavity estimated at 50 inches or more. The situation escalated instantly when the creature spotted him. It didn't retreat. Instead, it began to aggressively close the distance toward the boat. Trapped in the water in the middle of the night, David reacted on pure instinct, screaming at the creature and swinging a wooden oar to keep it at bay. The creature, covered in long, wavy black hair that obscured its facial features, moved with powerful, muscular limbs and let out distinct, grunting vocalizations. The encounter lasted for 20 terrifying minutes, with the beast coming within 6 feet of the boat, close enough for David to see water droplets clinging to its thick, pungent fur. Every attempt to drift farther away seemed painfully slow, making the distance between the boat and the shoreline feel endless. David knew that if the creature decided to enter deeper water, there would be little he could do to escape. The uncertainty of what it might do next proved just as frightening as the creature's sheer size. Throughout the harrowing standoff, David monitored the creature from the relative safety of the boat as it lingered, seemingly searching for a way to get a better hold of him. The terrifying event was eventually documented through Rocky Mountain Sasquatch, a channel that investigates these types of reports. For David, the experience was life-altering. He noted that no human could survive a physical confrontation with something of that size and strength. Eventually, the figure turned and retreated down a trail leading into a nearby wildlife area. leaving David to recover in the silence of the lake. This incident in Minnesota wasn't an isolated event, as reports of similar creatures frequenting swampy areas and shorelines have surfaced across the Great Lakes region, including sightings in the Chippewa National Forest. While other footage, such as the mysterious clip of a figure carrying an infant across the Cass River in Michigan, has sparked debates among experts, the intensity of David's close-range encounter remains a chilling reminder of what might be lurking in the shadows of the woods. After this night, David vowed never to fish at night again, forever changed by those 20 minutes in the dark near Spicer. After hearing such a visceral, close-range account, what do you think was really stalking the lake that night? Sozo Bear Films brings you real encounters from the edge of the unknown, and this one will make you question what hides in the darkness. One night, after finishing a late-night medical call, Nurse Sheila Granger was driving her lifted Jeep along a winding road when something moved on the left side of the road, then suddenly leapt into the center, straight into her headlights. On four legs with a long tail and pointy ears, it moved faster than anything she had ever seen, leaving her stunned and wondering what had just crossed her path.
I'm a hospice nurse, so I've had to go out and do critical care or crisis care on patients. You know, it might involve late night, all night, or whatever. And this one particular night, the patient passed away. So after everything was done, I was leaving the house. At the time, I had a Jeep, and it was pretty well lifted, so set up high. So I'm going down the curves and looking, keeping scan for a deer. And on my left side, I seen something move. And when it moved, it was on this side of the road, left side of the road. And the next thing it done was land in the center of the road, like on the yellow line. And when it landed in the center, my lights were shining, and it came about halfway up to my grill of my Jeep. It was on four legs, and it had a long tail and pointy ears, and I've never seen anything move that fast in my life.
Legends whisper of dogmen that haunt lonely roads, forcing travelers into danger, but experiencing it alone is pure terror. That night, she felt her heart slam against her chest, every shadow stretching with unseen movement, certain something was closing in behind her. When she returned with her husband Scott the next day, the ground told a chilling story. Enormous paw prints, far larger than any wolf's, pressed into the earth like a warning, proof that whatever had crossed her path was not just real, but hunting, patient, and far more dangerous than anyone could imagine.
You hear all these stories about dogmen, how they'll try to cause you to wreck or get you to stop, and that's all I could think about that time because I was by myself. And I was shaking. I'm telling you, I was very shaken. All I could think about is he's behind him, he's behind me. So the next day, I took Scott back and I said, this is where it crossed.
Yeah, that's probably some of the largest canine tracks I've ever seen in my life. And I've seen wolf tracks. And these canine tracks were very unique. They were extremely large, but the pad was elongated into a heel.
The tracks were like nothing he had ever seen, enormous, with a long, oddly shaped heel that seemed built for speed and power. At first, Scott thought maybe it was a slip or some mark left by a falling branch, but the more he studied it, the less that made sense. Heart racing, he carefully climbed the steep incline, 10, 12 feet, each movement testing his courage. At the top, the sand was firm yet soft enough to hold every detail, revealing impossible prints that spoke of a creature far larger and stranger than anything he could have imagined. A silent, haunting warning etched into the earth, proof that whatever had crossed his path was not only real, but terrifyingly alive. After reaching the top, he carefully made his way back down, every step slow and deliberate, and pointed to the track with a mixture of awe and fear. "Look at this one," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "It's identical to the prints up there." He had studied tracks from across the globe, but nothing, absolutely nothing, resembled this. The sheer size, the unusual shape, the way the earth had held each impression.
When I first saw that going up this embankment, I said, well, maybe his knee has hit and kind of slid. And then the more I get to looking at it, I'm like, that's too short for that to have been his knee. So I crawl up this embankment. It's probably about 10 feet up, 10, 12 feet up, and get up to the top, and it's sand up there. Hard sand, but it's sand. And after I saw that right there, I crawled back down and tell her, I said, that track that you're looking at right there is identical to the ones up there.
It was like the land itself had recorded the presence of something immense and otherworldly. Every detail screamed that whatever had passed here was not only real, but unlike anything he had ever imagined, a silent, haunting proof of a creature both ancient and terrifyingly alive. Though Sheila and Scott didn't see the creature again that night, the massive, otherworldly tracks, combined with the eerie silence of the forest and the memory of that fleeting, terrifying encounter on the road, served as a chilling reminder that some mysteries are far too dangerous to chase, and some places, no matter how familiar, are better left alone after dark. Ever wondered what happens when the sound you use to call out a predator actually gets you an answer back? It happened during a Bigfoot investigation in a remote stretch of the Pacific Northwest. A team of researchers had been tracking heavy Bigfoot activity around a mountain they had named Gray Mountain, and on this particular night, researcher Dr. Maria Mayer decided to go out alone.
I want to head over that way and put out some calls and see what happens.
Most researchers avoid going out alone in predator territory, but Maria had a plan. Using a powerful speaker, she played back a rare Bigfoot vocalization, hoping something nearby would respond. Her theory was, if something territorial was nearby, it would respond to an intruder in its space. It was her third attempt when something answered.
Hear that? Oh my God.
A deep, guttural call came from the tree line, and it wasn't an echo. It sounded almost identical to the recording she'd just played, even though she wasn't the one making the noise. She marked the location and headed back the next day to check the trail cameras she'd placed nearby, hoping one of them had caught whatever had called back. Reviewing the trail camera footage, one photo caught her attention. A large, dark, upright silhouette stood in the frame.
There's one shot at night, and there's some sort of figure in it.
That same night, in a nearby part of the hot zone, survivalist Russell E. Cord picked up something on his thermal camera. In the middle of a clearing, a heat signature appeared and went away almost as fast as it showed up. Seconds later, a deer bolted from the same spot, clearly afraid of something Russell and his team couldn't see with the naked eye.
That looks like a Bigfoot. Insane. Gone. Look.
That's a deer.
That's a deer, but look how he's acting. Oh, the deer got spooked.
It's leaving.
If the deer had been running from it, then whatever Russell saw hadn't gone far. It was still somewhere beyond the edge of the light, and if it was still out there, Maria's encounter suddenly didn't seem so isolated anymore. Do you think Russell's thermal camera picked up the same creature that answered her call? Sometimes you don't realize what happened until you review the footage. Other times, you know immediately that something isn't right. What does it take to make a grown man radio his own wife and tell her to call the police over a hog pen? It all began on a farm just outside Martinsburg, in West Virginia's eastern panhandle, an area locals call Spruce Pine Hollow. Brad Arvin, who's lived in the region for over 56 years, still remembers the day his grandfather sent him into the barn to grab hay for the cattle while he went to feed the pigs alone.
He wasn't gone 3 minutes. I see him back up, turn around, and come over and get in the truck. Where are we going, Pat? We got to go home. What's wrong? We got to go home. I thought he was sick. And then we get home, and then he looks at my grandmother and says, "You need to call the police."
Brad assumed his grandfather was sick, but the reality was much worse. His grandfather had found the hog pen covered in blood. Every animal had deep claw marks down its sides and severe injuries, but strangely, none of the meat had been touched. Instead, only the internal organs were missing.
And I finally look over in the hog pen, and there's all of our hogs. And just a bloody mess. Everything's just like something had grabbed them and raked down their sides. And then as you turned them over to look, their bellies were kind of like ripped open, and hearts, livers, kidneys gone.
When the sheriff's department and the DNR arrived, they blamed it on a bobcat.
Nothing to worry about. You're sorry for the loss, but, it's just a bobcat.
Brad never accepted that answer. Years later, he discovered that several reported Bigfoot encounters describe the same pattern, with only the organs taken because they are believed to provide more nutrition than muscle. Whether that's true or not, it matched exactly what his grandfather had seen. That wasn't Brad's only encounter with something in those woods. Years earlier, hunting with his grandfather and uncle, he remembers a sudden, overwhelming sense of dread settling over him while rocks and acorns were thrown from somewhere close by, close enough to hear. Every time he looked up, there was nothing there.
Acorns would be thrown, but then when you pop your head up over the log to look, there's nothing there. You just felt like, oh my God, this is the end, you know? And it was weird. It felt crazy.
But one hunting trip would leave an even bigger mystery behind. Brad and 4 other hunters had spread out around an old limestone quarry near Martinsburg, waiting for deer to be driven toward their positions. Then, something came over the top of the hill.
Down the side of this hill, and it's kind of like parallel on us, and it's the same color as a white-tailed deer. It's tan.
Running on all fours, tan-colored, it looked exactly like a white-tailed deer. 4 experienced hunters fired at it. Missing wasn't something they were known for, yet whatever they were aiming at never slowed down. It kept running straight toward the hunter waiting below, who had the clearest shot of them all, but that shot never came.
And I'm waiting to hear shots. And there's nothing. And by then, the guy that was with me, his 2 sons were already within, seeing distance, and I was like, hey man, do you see anything? Blood trail, whatever, I don't see anything. And they were like, oh, that's shooting, you had to have got something, And I was like, well, that's what I thought. So they started scouring that end of the gravel dump. I come up from the side, the other guy come up from the back side, and one of the other guys come up from the front. We found nothing.
When the drive was over, the men searched the area on their hands and knees. There was no blood, no hair, no tracks, and nothing had passed the hunters waiting below. Somehow, whatever they'd all watched run down that hill had simply disappeared. And Brad wasn't the only person with a story like that. Not far away, Christine Shattuck moved onto a property bordering the Sleepy Creek Mountain Wildlife Management Area. Less than 2 weeks later, while scanning a hillside with binoculars, she noticed what looked like a fallen log. But then she noticed something.
I saw it move, and I went, oh my God. And this was not in a spot where a person would be standing. There was a tree, and there was all this greenbrier. There was still a lot of foliage because it was the first week of November. And I saw it move, and I thought it was a person at first. I mean, Indian, like the dark skin. And then I looked again, and I was like, this thing's covered with hair all over its body.
Standing nearly 6.5 feet tall and covered in hair, the figure was upright in vegetation so thick a person could barely stand there. Christine quietly left the area. But when she stopped at the parking lot and looked back through her binoculars just minutes later, it was standing in the exact spot where she'd been. Those stories eventually caught the attention of nearby researchers. Joel and Elizabeth, who run a paranormal investigation channel, set up a gifting site near a rocky outcrop, leaving small offerings like stones and seashells to see if anything would interact with them. Over several visits, the items began disappearing. On one trip, Joel returned to find that a carefully stacked pile of 10 rocks had been reduced to just 3, while a moss-covered stone had somehow been moved lower down the stack in a way that didn't look natural.
That stack, and now there's like 3. It's still a stack though, and there's a larger rock that has moss on it. I can see in my photos, I can identify it and tell that it's kind of shifted down.
One story can be dismissed, even 2, but in the same stretch of forest, Brad's family, Christine, and local researchers all walked away with experiences they still can't explain. What do you think was really hiding in those woods? Salt Fork State Park in Ohio has become one of the best-known locations in the United States for Bigfoot reports. For years, visitors and local residents have shared stories of unusual sightings, leading many researchers to focus their attention on the park, especially an area known as Bigfoot Ridge. In this investigation, outdoor researchers Nathan and Eric use high-definition drone footage to search parts of the park that are difficult to reach on foot, hoping to document anything unusual from above. The recording begins with aerial footage sweeping over the forests and rolling hills of Salt Fork State Park. The drone slowly scans the dense tree canopy and open clearings below, giving a wide view of the landscape as the search gets underway. At first, nothing appears out of the ordinary as the camera continues across the remote terrain. After a closer look at one section of the forest, the drone zooms toward a small opening in the trees where a large dark figure can be seen near the brush. The figure appears to be low to the ground before later appearing upright as it moves through the vegetation. Because of the distance and the angle of the drone, it is difficult to determine exactly what the camera captured, but this moment has become the main focus of the investigation. The video then includes commentary from the researchers along with news coverage discussing the legend of the Ohio Grassman. The segment explains reported descriptions of the creature and explores why Salt Fork State Park has remained one of the most talked about locations for Bigfoot sightings over the years. It also references claims and theories that have been shared within the cryptid community, while making it clear that they remain subjects of debate.
This is the best place to look for evidence because not only being one of the Sasquatchiest places in the country, it's also got a place called Bigfoot Ridge. This is about as close as they get, and this is what really spooks the guys.
Near the end of the video, the footage returns to enlarged drone images of the figure moving through the forest. The researchers review the images from different angles and discuss what they believe can be seen, but the recording does not provide a definitive answer. As with many similar videos, viewers are left to decide for themselves whether the figure is something unusual or has a more ordinary explanation. For many Bigfoot enthusiasts, the Salt Fork footage remains another interesting case worth examining. While some believe the drone captured evidence of an unknown creature, others remain unconvinced. Without clearer footage or additional evidence, the video continues to fuel discussion about what may or may not be living in the forests of Ohio. Long before smartphones and high-definition cameras, one mysterious recording from the Colorado Rockies left behind more questions than answers. Known for their towering peaks, deep snow, and remote wilderness that can be difficult to reach even today, the Rockies have also been linked to stories of strange creatures seen in the mountains. One of the oldest pieces of footage connected to those stories is said to have been filmed during a Boy Scout camping trip in 1962. Captured on vintage 8mm film, the recording has remained a topic of discussion among Bigfoot researchers for decades. The footage opens with grainy black and white film slowly panning across a wide, snow-covered mountainside high in the Rockies. The camera scans the landscape, and at first, everything appears completely ordinary. The rugged terrain stretches into the distance before something unusual finally comes into view.
I'm Keith Hoffman, executive producer of Finding Bigfoot. And I have to admit, when I started this series, I was a bit of a skeptic. I am going to show you some of our strongest evidence that made me reconsider my position on Bigfoot.
A short time later, the camera settles on a dark figure moving across the snowy slope. The figure appears to be walking on two legs as it makes its way through the deep snow with slow, deliberate movements. At one point, it seems to turn in the direction of the camera before continuing across the mountainside. Because of the age and quality of the film, it is difficult to determine exactly what the figure is, but its upright movement and apparent size have kept people debating the footage for more than 60 years.
This 8mm footage from Colorado might be the first recorded footage of Bigfoot ever. It was recorded by a dad accompanying a Boy Scout group camping in the Rockies.
In the final moments, the figure continues across the rocky, snow-covered terrain. It appears to raise one arm as it moves from one rock to another while maintaining its balance on the uneven surface. The camera remains fixed on the distant figure until the clip abruptly ends, leaving viewers with only a brief glimpse of whatever was crossing the mountain.
You can see this creature's left arm going up in the air as it jumps from rock to rock, as if it's trying to balance himself. Is he trying to keep his big feet out of the snow? They must get cold.
More than 60 years later, this recording is still part of the conversation whenever historic Bigfoot footage is discussed. Some viewers believe it shows an unknown creature moving through the Rockies, while others think it could simply be a person seen from a great distance. Despite decades of analysis, no explanation has been universally accepted, leaving this vintage film as one of the most enduring and mysterious Bigfoot recordings ever associated with the Colorado Rockies. Her dogs noticed something she couldn't. This next team had the opposite problem. Their camera could see it, but their own eyes couldn't. That's the exact situation investigators Ronnie LeBlanc and Dr. Mireya Mayor found themselves in while staking out a suspected feeding ground deep in the Olympic Peninsula. Footage that later aired as part of the Expedition Bigfoot series. Working from opposite sides of a river, Mireya was the first to catch it, a massive glowing red heat signature on her thermal camera, standing upright behind a tree directly across from her. At first, she assumed it was hiding, staying still enough that it could pass for part of the landscape. Then, it moved. Those were full, deliberate movements, enough that Ronnie insisted she keep the camera locked on it while he tried something. He made a call into the dark and waited. The figure reacted. Small white dots began appearing above the heat signature, sometimes 3, sometimes 5, blinking in and out like they had a rhythm of their own. Then, in real time, the heat signature itself started shrinking. The lower half faded first, growing fainter until it disappeared completely.
Mireya, come in for Ronnie.
Seriously, what is that?
Mireya's not responding.
It looks like a body. It's right across the river from me.
What do you think it is?
It looks like a large red heat signature hiding behind a tree. This is honestly the strangest thing I've ever seen.
So it's hiding behind the tree. This is getting stranger by the minute.
Leaving nothing but a small white circle hovering where a massive figure had been standing seconds earlier. Then, that vanished too. Mireya swept her flashlight across the exact spot. Nothing was there. A beam of light should have caught something if a solid figure had actually been standing at that riverbank. The team's camera had also glitched throughout the encounter, refusing to record despite functioning normally minutes before and after.
Mireya, please tell me that you're recording that figure.
What's happening now? Ronnie, the thermal's glitching and it won't record. The camera is not recording. Wait, it stopped glitching, but the camera's still not recording. We'll have to get it off the cameraman's video.
I want to try something. Just keep it on the target. I'm going to do a call in 30 seconds.
I've got it in my sights.
Something the crew has come to associate with Bigfoot's alleged ability to interfere with electronics during close encounters. And then the team pulled up the previous night's footage to review it frame by frame with fresh eyes. The heat signature was unmistakably there on screen, hot, defined, and roughly the size and shape of something crouched or standing at full height.
Are you saying they were separate white dots, like floating above it or on the heat signature itself?
No, like above it.
Yeah, I mean, we got to look at that.
Yeah, no.
Orbs go hand in hand with Bigfoot, and some Native Americans believe that they can actually transform into these orbs and go in between worlds. Whatever Mireya was seeing above this figure, it sounds a lot like orbs, and if it's anything like last year, then we're definitely into some strange territory.
But the moment Mireya's flashlight passed over the same spot in the recording, the visible area showed nothing. The team ruled out known wildlife almost immediately. Nothing native to that forest produces a heat signature that size, and nothing explains why it would disappear entirely from view while remaining fully visible on thermal only seconds earlier. If a heat signature that large can stand across a river, react to a call, and vanish completely under direct light, what do you think Mireya and Ronnie actually caught on camera that night? Meet Gaz, the adventurer behind Grizzly Gaz, whose videos take viewers deep into solo camping and bushcraft expeditions, often with his loyal dog, Fendi. On a familiar stretch of woodland, Gaz felt the usual thrill of the wild. But tonight was different. As wind whistled through the trees, he noticed a flicker near the so-called witch's den. Shadows shifted, and for a moment it seemed as if someone, or something, was watching. In the wilderness, even the safest places can hold secrets waiting to be discovered.
I always feel like somebody's just gonna pop its head up over. Annoyed out already. And there it is, the witch's den. You ready, mate? Yeah? You can hear the wind just whistling through those trees. I'm sure I just saw a light or maybe some eye shine.
The forest was nearly pitch black, and Gaz could barely make out the path ahead, moving cautiously. A branch snapped somewhere in the shadows, making him pause. In a place like this, the mind plays tricks. Wind rattling branches, trees groaning under unseen weight. Every creak and whisper of the woods seemed amplified, and even the familiar forest felt alive, watching, and unpredictable. Tonight, the wilderness had its own rules, and Gaz was about to learn them the hard way.
Can't see much in here. But let's go find the witch's den. Sure, I just heard a branch break over there somewhere.
Upon entering the darkened forest, the usual calm of the evening gave way to a tense unease. Wind tore through the trees, sending branches crashing to the ground. The trunks groaned and squeaked under its force, echoing through the shadows. Gaz paused, eyes scanning the restless darkness, the flickering movement of leaves making the woods seem alive. Even the wind itself carried a weight. The atmosphere pressed in, setting a chilling tone before the night had even truly begun.
Wind knocking branches over. Trees squeaking. Hear that wind.
Gaz's gaze locked on a faint glimmer deep in the shadows. For a moment, the forest fell silent. Then came the subtle, chilling reflection. Eyeshine, watching from the darkness, deliberate and unblinking, sending a shiver down his spine. Branches cracked and snapped all around him, echoing through the shadowed forest. Gaz's eyes darted from shape to shape. That's proper creepy. The tension pressed in from every direction, and for the first time that night, he admitted it. He was on edge. Definitely on edge.
Cracking and stuff. Look at this, look. That's just proper creepy, that, isn't it?
Flashes of movement appeared through the shadows. "Someone's been here," came the whispered observation. A fresh cut on a tree drew the eye. Sharp, unmistakable, likely no more than a week old. The forest seemed alive, trunks creaking and groaning as if shifting away, each sound amplifying the tension. Darkness pressed in from every side, and every rustle hinted that something, or someone, was watching.
Keep seeing flashes of stuff like, oh look, someone's been here. That looks like a fresh cut, does that? That's definitely fresh. Probably a week old or something, if that.
A sound drifted through the darkness, faint at first, almost like a dog. But there was something off about it. Whatever it was, it moved with weight, immense and deliberate. Eyes caught a glint of reflection up along the side of a wall, large, unblinking, and watching. The presence felt enormous, and the instinct was clear. It was time to move, fast, before the forest revealed any more of its secrets.
Whatever it is, it sounds big, so I think me and Fenzel should get out of here. Pretty sure I saw eye shine right up there. other side of that wall. It looked pretty big as well. Hold on.
Advice had always been to look up, but tonight the only concern was the branches overhead, creaking and threatening. A sudden sound cut through the stillness. A startled exclamation broke the silence. Something, a sneeze or something eerily close, echoed from the shadows ahead. The source was just out of sight, yet impossible to ignore. The noise was wrong, unnatural, sending a shiver down the spine and pushing the tension higher with every heartbeat.
Everyone always tells me to look up, but the only reason why I'm looking up is for branches. Right. Oh shit. Come on, let's get out of here. I'm sure I've just heard someone sneeze.
Movement was slow, deliberate, creeping around him, every step careful in the dim light. Then came a sudden, jarring sound. Something had struck the window, sharp and startling. Eyes scanned the shadows, catching a glimpse of something small yet unsettling, watching every cautious move.
I'm creeping round the bed. Creeping, creeping, creeping. With that? All right here. Something just hit my window.
Though the forest eventually fell silent and the night passed without further incident, the experience left an uneasy mark. Was it merely the tricks of the wind and shadows, or had something far more deliberate been watching from the darkness? Sometimes the person you least expect at a gas station hands you a story that changes the whole trip. That's exactly what happened to the Voyager Overland team last winter. A stranger at a gas station recognized him from a video he'd posted the fall before, one that had people guessing Bigfoot, trespassers, even military. Turns out the stranger knew the area himself. Over a coffee, he sketched out a map to something even stranger, deeper in.
So I'm filling up at the gas station last winter, and this guy comes up to me and he says, "You're Voyager Overland, aren't you?" And he tells me, "Hey, I saw your video last fall, and I recognized where you were." And I read the comments as well, he says. People are saying it's Bigfoot or Sasquatch or somebody looking to steal your stuff or the military with special suits and whatever. Well, he tells me that him and his dad used to hunt in that area and he knows exactly where we were and he saw exactly what we saw. And he says, if you want, I'll give you directions if you want to go see something even more spooky. So I bought him a coffee and he drew me a map. Gave me some general directions, and that's where Gina and I are going this weekend. We're going to hopefully verify what we saw and see the rest that he's talking about. It got my attention when he told me that him and his dad, they don't hunt there. They've never been back again. And he kind of cautioned me. He said, if you get there at the right time, you're going to see what you saw in your video, what you captured on camera, and you're probably going to see a lot more.
The trip didn't go smoothly from the start. The usual road to the trailhead was blocked by a gate neither of them had ever seen closed before, forcing a 2-hour detour in the dark, crossing 2 rivers and following a cut line around a lake just to reach the same starting point. By the time they made camp for the night, it was already pitch black, and the wind picked up out of nowhere despite no sign of it on the way up.
Well, this is home for tonight, and I was hoping for a campfire tonight, but oh, is it windy. And actually, I didn't notice the wind until we just got to the top here. Kind of strange, actually.
That night, sitting around camp, the full story came out. According to the man at the gas station, decades earlier, sometime around the 1950s or 60s, a trapper had been living out in that same backcountry with his wife joining him for the summer. One day, he went out to work and never came back. She waited a day, then 2, before hiking out to town to get his brother's help. They searched for weeks and found nothing. The man's theory: What the team had caught on camera the year before wasn't Bigfoot at all. It was the trapper's brother, still searching those woods for him.
What this gentleman is telling me is that what we saw, what we caught on video that night, is actually the trapper's brother that is still looking for him to this day. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, that seems a little far-fetched to me, but we don't know what we caught, so I really don't know. So the plan tomorrow is to follow the directions that he gave us and go see if we can find that cabin.
So they set up a trail camera for the night and went to bed. But the very next day, when they pulled the SD card, something had recorded 6 separate clips, but almost none of it was watchable. One video was badly glitched. The rest were too bright, washed out, unreadable on a small screen.
Just to make sure we don't have any problems, we used a brand new SD card. So it's time to look and see why there's 6 videos on here from last night.
Ooh, that's hard to see, eh?
It is. Hang on here.
Can we actually open it to look at?
It's a clear picture. You can see me setting it up. But I don't really see anything except for this one that's really glitchy. So I'm really not sure what's going on here. So I don't know what we're looking at. The one video is kind of glitchy. Otherwise, it's so hard to see, right? It's so bright on the screen. So I think we're gonna have to wait till we get back home and I got a computer screen, a large computer screen to work with, see if we can make anything out. But it still puzzles me that it recorded a whole bunch of video and there seems to be nothing on there.
They packed it away to check later on a real monitor and pushed on toward the cabin. The directions weren't easy to follow. A creek that wasn't mentioned. A fork in the trail that didn't match what they'd been told. More than once they nearly turned back, convinced they'd taken a wrong route entirely. Then, just past a muddy low point in the valley, they found it. It was the outline of a large cabin, long collapsed, with a stone chimney still standing above the ruins.
Oh, hold on, here it is. Oh, that is so cool. Well, that took some effort to find, but oh wow, this is so cool. You can tell the outline of what used to be a cabin, and check out this standing chimney. Wow. This is so cool. Check out what's left of it.
They were roughly 10 to 12 kilometers from the nearest road, deep enough in that they hadn't seen another person since the day before. At night, they set the camera again and went to sleep in a light drizzle, both admitting afterward they slept better than expected, undisturbed through the whole night. Instead, they noticed smoke curling up from the old stone chimney. The cabin had been a burned-out ruin for possibly 100 years. There was nothing inside it to burn, no fireplace intact, no fuel source, nothing. And yet, smoke was rising from it, thick enough to smell wood burning in the air around them.
At the fireplace.
What? What the frick? What the is that?
Where's that smoke coming from? What the?
It's coming from inside. There's nothing in here.
There's nothing in here.
Then came the sound, something loud, moving nearby, bigger and heavier than anything a moose could produce. The kind of sound that doesn't match anything either of them had heard in years outdoors. They didn't wait around to find out what it was. They packed up and left immediately, abandoning the footage they just recorded without ever reviewing it on site.
I heard something. Did you hear that?
Freaking sounded like a moose or something like that, but
It was loud.
like bigger and not like a moose.
It even smells like wood smoke. But where the hell is it coming from? What? Did you hear that?
Yeah.
The frick was that? Hey! Hello?
I'm out of here. I don't like this.
No, it's time to pack up and get the out of here. Did I leave that? I did leave that.
Whatever the gas station stranger knew, and whatever he chose not to say, it clearly wasn't something either of them wanted to test twice. What do you think was really burning in that chimney that morning? Nearly a year ago, a group of female Sasquatch researchers entered the remote forests of Washington for an overnight investigation unlike any they had experienced before. Their goal was to create a relaxed and open environment where researchers could focus on documenting possible Sasquatch activity without distractions. Bringing together experienced investigators from Washington and Oregon, they traveled to a secluded location near Hoodport, deep within the wilderness. But as the investigation unfolded, the peaceful atmosphere began to change. Strange sounds, unusual activity, and unexplained moments started emerging from the surrounding forest, turning what began as a simple research trip into a night filled with mystery. What they encountered there would leave them searching for answers long after they returned home.
Welcome to Salish Sasquatch, where we share evidence as well as encounters. Almost a year ago, my friend Missy and I began planning a women's only camp out in Washington State. The reason we wanted to have just women is we wanted to create an atmosphere that was less threatening, a little bit more feminine, and just really chill vibes. So we gathered some of the best female researchers from the state, including one from Oregon, and we headed up to our friend Leslie King's Airbnb up on Down Mountain, which is in Hoodsport, Washington.
Almost immediately after arriving at the remote location, the investigation took an unexpected turn. While documenting their experience for Salish Sasquatch, two researchers heard a strange vocal coming from the woods below, a sound that seemed part bark and part howl. The unusual call echoed through the forest, stopping them in their tracks as they realized they had both heard the same unexplained sound. With no clear answer to what had come from the darkness, the mystery surrounding the area had already begun from the very first moments.
As soon as we got there, a few women heard an interesting vocal.
So Jamie and I were walking over to our cabin, or to my cabin, to put my stuff away, and it's overlooking the ravine. And we were both walking, but we heard something coming from there that sounded kind of barky, howly like, and then then there was another noise after, but since we were kind of walking, we didn't really, I don't know, we just both heard it, and we can't explain what it was.
It stopped us in our tracks.
It
though.
stopped
We
us.
stopped and we were like,
We both looked at each other like, did you hear that?
The first night was pretty quiet. There was some interesting sounds, but nothing that you'd want to write home about. Definitely nothing that you'd want to make videos about.
Their final night in the forest became the turning point of the entire investigation. Around 8:15 p.m., a powerful tree fall shattered the calm and pushed them to begin recording the surrounding area. What followed was a series of unexplained moments captured both outside and inside the cabin, evidence that would later draw the attention of respected Bigfoot researchers Doug Hychek and David Ellis. As the night continued, strange activity unfolded around the property, creating a timeline filled with unusual sounds, mysterious movements, and events that left everyone searching for a possible explanation behind what had happened deep in the forest.
The next night was our last night there. The night actually started with the tree fall around 8:15 p.m., and that's when we deployed audio. We heard a few interesting things, but again, nothing to write home about. That night turned out to be very interesting. I'm gonna go through the whole timeline with you. Throughout the video, you're gonna see a few videos that the girls captured, including one from inside the cabin where this incident took place. And then you will hear from Doug Hychek and David Ellis. Both of these people are very credible men in the Bigfoot community and very well respected.
Determined to capture whatever might be moving through the area, they surrounded the property with audio recorders. Each device was carefully placed near locations linked to previous unexplained activity. The ravine where strange sounds had been heard, the cabin area where unusual noises were reported, and another nearby location where mysterious vocals had been detected. With the equipment set up, they moved deeper into the investigation, exploring the area and searching for answers hidden within the forest. Every recorder became another silent witness waiting for something to happen.
So we're gonna go down here. Jamie, Janice, and I are we're gonna surround the property with our audio recorders. I'm gonna put one down here because this is the ravine where we hear a lot of stuff take place. We've heard a few things back over here by Jamie's cabin, which is where we're going to put one. And then we're going to put one across the street where Leslie has heard vocals.
The moment they heard movement outside the cabin, everything changed. Something was circling the area, tapping on the walls, throwing small rocks, and leaving behind heavy footsteps in the darkness. With the new moon creating near total blackness, they had no way to see what was out there. Then, as they listened closely, another sound came from the forest, turning a strange night into a truly unsettling encounter.
That something was walking around the cabin, tapping on the cabin, and throwing pebbles at the cabin. And then Lydia heard footsteps. This is where we were. We're way over here. And it was a new moon yesterday. It was pitch black.
The events surrounding the cabin created a series of disturbing patterns that immediately caught the attention of those investigating the encounter. Unexplained tapping, rocks striking the structure, heavy footsteps circling the area, and deep breathing sounds unfolded one after another, matching behaviors often described in reported Sasquatch encounters. As the activity intensified, each new sound added another piece to the mystery developing around the property. With the darkness hiding whatever was moving nearby, those involved were left facing a question they could not answer. What had been watching, approaching, and moving through the forest that night? Even before the night was over, the team realized the forest seemed to be responding to their presence.
That sums up our trip at Down Mountain this weekend. Missy and my goal was to come to a place with only women, bring a couple kids, and try to just lure them that way in a non-threatening way.
What do you think was really out there in the darkness that night? A strange coincidence, an unknown animal, or something far more mysterious? Share your thoughts in the comments. They entered the Canadian wilderness searching for Sasquatch. But deep among the mountains, something was already leaving behind signs that no one on the expedition could easily explain. Massive tree breaks, strange structures hidden deep in the forest, wood knocks echoing through the silence from somewhere beyond the trees. Then came the footprints, huge impressions pressed into the ground, including what appeared to be a distinct, oversized toe mark.
I recently spent 7 days deep in the Canadian wilderness looking for Sasquatch with a small team of researchers, but nothing prepared me for what actually happened out there. Dozens and dozens of tree breaks and tree structures that clearly weren't natural, and yet obviously couldn't have been done by a human either.
It looks like it's an intentionally created structure.
Wood knocks echoing through the mountains.
What did you hear exactly?
It was like 2 tree knocks.
Multiple massive footprints.
I don't think I'm imagining things. Are you seeing what looks like a big toe impression here?
You can feel it.
But the most unsettling clue was waiting high above them. Apples had been disappearing from a tree nearly 15 feet off the ground. When the researchers returned, every single one was gone. Whatever had been moving through those remote forests was not simply leaving evidence behind. It seemed to be getting closer, watching from somewhere just beyond the trees.
Stick our hand in there.
Oh yeah, that's definitely lower.
No question.
Apples taken from 15 feet up in a tree.
We came back today and all the apples are now gone.
The most unsettling part of this expedition was that the researchers were not entering completely unknown territory. Before they arrived, 3 women had already reported seeing a Sasquatch along this exact highway, and they believed it was the same creature previously captured on camera by the researcher leading the expedition. The location made the claim even more intriguing. This remote stretch of the Kootenays was believed to be part of a Sasquatch's territory, a place where the creature may have lived and moved unseen for years. Now, with the team arriving at base camp, the search was about to become much more serious. Equipment was unloaded, supplies were secured, and a loaded firearm was prepared for protection. Because somewhere beyond the trees was a wilderness the researchers believed belonged to something far larger and possibly far closer than they realized.
I had these 3 ladies that had a story about Sasquatch on this exact highway, and this highway is my Sasquatch's domain. They live in this part of the Kootenays. So it was actually the part of the highway they stopped on is 100% my Sasquatch's habitat. So these ladies called me and they said, that Sasquatch that you have footage of, we've seen him.
So we made it to base camp. The guys are unloading, and Todd is entrusting me with a little bit of insurance here. Thank you, sir.
So that's loaded for bear.
Got it.
So everybody's safely in that, the three are safely in that trailer.
Yep.
You and I are going to be...
The break looked unnatural, and the surrounding forest only made it more puzzling. Every nearby tree remained completely untouched. No widespread storm damage, no signs of heavy snow or powerful winds. Just one tree, broken among a cluster of others that had somehow escaped damage. Even the researcher leading the expedition had once dismissed Sasquatch tree breaks as impossible to prove. But after examining this one closely, a more experienced team member noticed something unusual. The wood showed signs of a powerful tensile fracture, suggesting the tree had been pulled apart rather than simply bent or snapped by natural forces. Suddenly, this was no longer just a broken tree.
And this is, 8 years old. Clearly a Sasquatch tree break. There's no, even when you look like this tree and this tree and this tree, we're all here, and that tree and this tree. So why in the hell would this tree be broken amongst all these other trees that are undamaged from if it was snow load or wind or a tornado or something, right?
That's a tensile fracture.
As opposed
It's a bending failure as opposed to a shear failure. Normally wood will splinter on an angle and it's weak in shear. So normally when wood fails, it fails in shear.
It was a clue. Months later, when the expedition returned to the site, the tree was still bent under immense tension, as if the force that had twisted it had never fully released its grip. The researcher finally reached a conclusion he once considered impossible. Sasquatch had bent the tree. Near its base, they also discovered what appeared to be part of a massive track. Then a structural specialist examined the break and identified a remarkably clean tensile fracture, evidence of immense force that seemed impossible to explain through ordinary wind, snow, or decay.
This tree, look at this. It's under pressure still. So the Sasquatch, I'm just gonna say it, bent that tree, look at that tree, that's a big tree, and made this crazy impressive tree break. And right at the bottom here behind, left a boom mark of a track. And tell me, let's get our structural engineer to look at this. I mean, that is a tensile break? Is that the proper pronunciation?
Before leaving the wilderness, the researcher built one final tree structure of his own, a tribute to the mysterious builders behind the strange formations scattered throughout the forest. He could only wonder whether whatever created the others would someday discover his. As Cabin in the Woods later revealed, the expedition never captured definitive Sasquatch footage, but it uncovered something far harder to dismiss: massive tracks, unnatural tree breaks, apples taken from impossible heights, and something moving through dense deadfall with extraordinary speed and almost complete silence. No clear image, no undeniable proof. Yet for those who were there, the presence in that forest felt undeniably real.
There it is, all finished. My tree structure, standing in solidarity with the Sasquatches who made all these other ones around here. I hope they see it someday.
But after all the evidence left behind, one question remains. What do you think was really moving through those remote forests? A Sasquatch, or something we still have no explanation for? Drop your theory in the comments. Nobody knows the answer to that one, but a trail camera in western New York may have caught something just as strange, standing in plain sight and gone the very next frame. The photos come from a researcher who runs Rytac hunt systems, pulled from a Spy Point trail camera on his property. He's upfront that he doesn't chase hoaxes or manufactured evidence, but this particular set of images stopped him in his tracks the moment he reviewed them. The first photo, taken at 10:14 in the morning on August 26, 2016, with the temperature sitting around 68 degrees, shows a dense stretch of forest between two large trees. Off in the corner, a squirrel sits on the ground, unbothered. But tucked between the trunks is a dark shape that doesn't belong to either tree, black against a backdrop of brown bark, positioned low enough and close enough that zooming in reveals what looks like a defined brow ridge, an eye socket, and the edge of a cheekbone, peeking out as if caught mid-step.
See if you can see what I see. Alright, you had long enough. So what we're looking at is right here. You guys see that? That black? Well, people are going to say, oh my god, that's, you never know, that's, I don't know what that is, and so on and so forth. But as you can look, the trees are brown. This is clearly black, of a black nature, right here on the game cam. So what we're going to do is try to zoom that in. Oh my lord, take a look at that. You see the conical head? You see the eye and the brow ridge and the bone structure with the nose and the cheek? It's almost like it's peeking out behind the trees as it's going to move that way. Here, the body runs down behind these trees. You're only seeing a portion of it. It's definitely peeking. If I zoom way in, it's distorted. But you can obviously see what that is.
Then, in the very next photo taken from the same camera, it's gone. And there's no tree standing in that exact spot that could account for it. He pulls up both images side by side. The same two trees, the same patch of forest, one frame with a clear shape wedged between them, the next completely empty.
And then if you go one more, no, that space, there's the big tree, guys, and here's the other tree, so it's right there. And it's gone. That whole subject, the whole thing that it looked like, there's not even a tree right there that could have looked like it. So a lot of people say, oh, it'll be a stump, or this or that. Well, there's no tree there, guys. There's not even a tree there that could look like it at all. So let's take you back. I'll leave the cursor right there. 1, there it is. 2, 3. You can. I'm gonna rock it. You can see the head move. Watch the head. I don't know what you guys want to say that is, but I'm almost certain I know what that is. Now, when I showed you in the picture earlier, there was no tree there looking like that. So that you can't say that that's a tree or a stump that's there, because I've got after footage that shows that it's not. So let's go to where we see it. Now, see? Right there. There's your big tree. There's your other tree. There's no tree there leaning that direction, like sticking out.
That gap between photos is what convinced him this wasn't a trick of shadow or bark texture. If the shape had simply been a stump or an odd growth, it would still be sitting there in the second image. It isn't. Whatever occupied that space between the two trees had moved on by the time the camera triggered again. Would 2 consecutive frames like that be enough to change your mind? If Russell's sighting proves anything, it's that thermal cameras don't always tell the whole story. Sometimes the only proof you get is something you didn't even notice until you looked back. That's exactly what happened to one man on Vancouver Island, British Columbia, roughly 3 weeks before he uploaded his video to the cabin in the woods. The man, his wife Adita, and their 7-year-old daughter flew into Sydney Airport before driving about 90 minutes south to Shirley. Their cottage backed onto dense forest, with an even larger one across Highway 14. According to Google Maps, it stretched for miles. On day 2, their host, wearing a Bigfoot t-shirt, mentioned the forest across the highway had a reputation for strange, unexplained activity. He wouldn't say more, but he did mention losing goats over the years, some to confirmed predators, blood and torn fencing left behind. One goat, though, simply vanished, without any proper explanation.
The third time that the guy mentioned where a goat had simply disappeared. Like he had come to the paddock in the morning to feed the animals, the chickens and the goats, and there was just one less goat. There was no damage to the fence, though, that time. There was no sign of an animal trying to push over the fence. The 5-foot fence was perfectly intact.
The comment stuck with him, But the trip carried on normally for over a week. Then, 4 days before they were due to fly home, they returned to Muir Creek Beach, a remote stretch of cobblestone shoreline near the cottage. While his wife waited in the shallows, the man and his daughter climbed onto a massive driftwood log. That's when a rock struck the wood hard enough to echo, landing exactly opposite where his daughter stood. Without the log, it would have hit her.
We're just playing innocently when all of a sudden I hear the echoing crack of a stone hitting this log that we are in. And I knew instantly that the stone had been thrown. It hadn't, just fallen from somewhere. Not that there was really anywhere it could have fallen from, but it had hit this log hard enough that I knew from the sound it had been thrown.
He ruled out his wife immediately. She'd had her back turned the entire time, and there was no one else on the beach in either direction. The only place a person could have been hiding was a steep 30 to 40 foot rock cliff behind them, one so thick with vegetation that visibility dropped to about 5 feet. It didn't take long before he started thinking about stories he'd read about Bigfoot throwing rocks.
One of the hallmarks of Sasquatch sightings is that before people see the creature or hear the creature vocalize, the creature will throw rocks at them. They'll be walking through the forest, say on a hunting trip or something in a remote area like we were, and a pebble will land at their feet, and they'll look around and there's no one to have thrown it, and they can't see where it came from other than it seems to have come from a long way away and to have been thrown with a lot of power.
That night, he crossed the highway alone with only his phone flashlight, remembering the host's warning to keep your wits about you in that forest. About 100 yards in, he heard something.
And it sounded, best I can describe it, like a large, heavy-set, barrel-chested man clearing his throat.
First, it was a low, guttural sound, something between a man clearing his throat and a warning growl. Then, 20 to 30 seconds later, a second sound. A large tree twisting and cracking, the kind of noise you'd expect on a windy day. Except there was no wind at all that night. He returned the next afternoon in daylight. Around 120 yards in, near where he estimated the sounds had come from, he found a single deep impression pressed into the forest floor, roughly 50% larger than his own shoe, and lacking any distinct toe marks.
I don't know if this is a footprint or just some naturally occurring depression here, but it's deep, whatever it is, and it's fresh.
A few yards further, he found a healthy balsam fir, still green, completely uprooted with no rot, no insect damage, and no wind damage to any surrounding trees. That's when something catches his eye, just past the fallen tree, 60 or 70 yards out. There was a dark shape, low to the ground, wide enough that it didn't look like anything natural. His first thought is that it's a root ball, torn loose when the tree came down. That's the only explanation that made sense.
Strange, because what I saw was a large black shape that I would estimate to be 8 to 9 feet tall. I'm a pretty good judge of heights and lengths and things from all the years I've...
He raised his phone and filmed it anyway, several seconds of dark, motionless mass sitting in the brush before he left. And then he came back the next day to check on it, and that's when the unease really set in. The shape was gone. Instead, a few feet away was a second tree, a birch, even bigger than the first, its trunk snapped clean in half. He searched the ground around it for a stump, for roots, for any sign of how a tree that size could fall on its own.
Here's that fallen balsam, and I've gotten close enough now to see there is a root ball, so maybe it fell down naturally, but the wood seems sound. And you can see this balsam still has lots of green.
There wasn't even a stump nearby. As far as he could tell, that tree had been moved there. It wasn't until he was back home, scrolling through the footage with his family, that his wife leaned in and pointed at the screen. Right at the base of the shape, there was movement. Small, but unmistakable. Something swinging gently, like it's attached to whatever that mass really was. And near the top, half swallowed by branches, something that might be a face was looking straight back at the camera.
She pointed out that there was a little bit of movement, kind of on the bottom left area of this black shape. And I looked closely and I zoomed in even further, and the footage was kind of blurry, but she was right. It looked like something was kind of hanging and swinging back and forth a little bit towards the bottom and the left-hand side of whatever it was I saw.
The rock, the footprint, and the broken trees were unsettling enough, but that hidden figure stayed with him long after the trip ended. So what was actually watching him from that tree line? Deep in the remote Colorado wilderness, a peaceful river expedition took a shocking turn when a group of explorers encountered something they could not explain. While navigating the upper Colorado River, the team pulled ashore for a brief stop, but their quiet break was interrupted when movement in the nearby forest caught their attention. Hidden among the trees, a strange figure appeared, crossing the landscape in a way that left everyone watching in disbelief. Nearly 500 yards away, lead guide Logan Kirk and around 12 others witnessed the massive silhouette moving through the wilderness. With no clear explanation and no answers, the group was left questioning what they had truly seen. Was it an unknown creature roaming the Colorado backcountry, or another possible clue in the decades-old mystery of Bigfoot? This strange encounter later gained attention after being featured by Daily Mail, bringing new curiosity to one of the world's most enduring mysteries. What do you think they really witnessed? Share your theories in the comments.